Hey, you, move it. 10:30 p.m., Serenity Veterinary Hospital. Emily Cherry nonchalantly observed the anesthetized dog on the operating table, inwardly grumbling. Utterly fed up with this title of S-City's #1 veterinarian. Every single day, up before the rooster, asleep after the ghosts. Holidays and breaks were irrelevant to her, the only thing relevant was a surgical schedule so packed there wasn't even time for a sip of water. Sigh. After her lament, Emily Cherry resignedly picked up the scalpel, preparing for surgery. Half an hour later, Emily Cherry set down the blood-stained scalpel, swiftly completing the final tasks. Crash, the SUV slammed into a roadside tree. Smash, the SUV plowed straight into the gates of Serenity Veterinary Hospital. Emily Cherry, just finished and about to leave, still in her white coat, rushed out to investigate. The Serenity Veterinary Hospital's illuminated sign now flickered, displaying only the words, Veterinary Hospital. Bloody hell, can a person even go home? Rolling up her sleeves, she stormed over to the wrecked SUV and forcefully kicked the mangled driver's side door. Seeing a dust-covered man in black inside, Emily Cherry's eyebrows immediately furrowed. What kind of driving is that? In a hurry to reincarnate? Pay up. Believe it or not, I'll shoot you dead. Nathan Dawson's handsome face was flushed from blood loss. His large hand swiftly drew a gun, the cold muzzle pressing against Emily Cherry's temple, his eyes icy as they fixed on her. A real gun? A gun, so what if it's real? She's a model citizen, surely, he wouldn't dare shoot a civilian. With this thought, Emily Cherry's defiant spirit flared. She pushed the cold muzzle away and extended her right hand. Think you're tough with a gun? You break it, you buy it. Get lost. Nathan Dawson hadn't expected this woman to be not only unafraid but also so persistent. His gaze grew colder. He holstered the gun, preparing to close the car door and reverse out. Bastard, not even an apology, let alone compensation. Trying to slip away, huh? Emily Cherry, convinced she was right, couldn't let him go. Gripping the door handle tightly with both hands, she yelled furiously, "Deadbeat! Deadbeat!" He'd met arrogant men, but never anyone this brazen. Hey, you, move it. Nathan Dawson's voice, usually deep and magnetic, now crackled with suppressed fury. He'd simply been on his way to NK Security for a regular meeting. Unexpectedly ambushed en route, his SUV had blocked 99% of the bullets. Unfortunately, a stray one had lodged deep in his arm, leaving him weak from blood loss. In the end, he could only let the modified SUV crash into a tree and come to a stop. Glancing at the endless darkness behind the vehicle, he forcefully pried her hands off the door handle, fearing that any further delay would prevent his escape. If his crew found out he'd been held up by some crazy woman, they'd never let him live it down. Emily Cherry swiftly executed a small arm lock, her strong left arm pinning his neck while her right hand snatched his gun. She quickly tucked it into the tight-fitting t-shirt beneath her white blouse, patting her chest despite the cold radiating from the weapon. Humph, let's see how he welches on his debt now, she thought. Let go of me, or I'll bite you. Having grown up in his brother's martial arts school, no one besides Kyle Thomas had ever lasted more than 3 moves against Nathan Dawson. Yet, this tart-tongued woman before him had managed a sneak attack, even snatching his gun, something as vital as his life. How could he, the CEO of a leading global security firm, let her brag about this? His cold gaze swept over her delicate features, pausing on the white blouse stained with dog blood and the strange shape protruding beneath it. An eyebrow arched, a chilling aura emanating from him as he looked at her with a half-smile. 2 words escaped his lips, "Get in." In a flash, Nathan Dawson effortlessly subdued Emily Cherry with a swift turn, his large hand clamping down on her neck with such force that her small face flushed crimson, a muffled groan escaping her. Cough, cough, cough. Freed, Emily Cherry coughed violently, greedily gulping fresh air. She hadn't expected such ruthlessness from such a handsome man. She'd almost died. Unlucky, utterly unlucky. Afraid of being caught, Emily Cherry pressed her lips together, hiding the white teeth that had sunk into his arm. She retreated a few steps, her bright eyes glaring at him. Damn it, even her glare was effortlessly elegant, her whole being radiating a stubborn aura that left a deep impression. Primal desire surged within him, causing Nathan Dawson to impatiently exit the car. In one stride, he hoisted her small frame over his shoulder and marched straight into Serenity Veterinary Hospital. Hey, 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 put me down. I'll bite you. Hey, hey, hey. Could it be? What did he want? Robbery? Possible. Rape? Also possible. Robbery and rape? Very possible. Damn it, this is just great. I haven't seen the money for the shop's broken lamppost, and now I'm going to lose my virginity too. I'm truly blind. The more Emily Cherry thought, the more she shuddered. She opened her mouth and bit down hard on his shoulder, but he didn't react, as if she were biting cotton candy, no pain, no itch. Shut up, lady. Remove the bullet, compensate, then we can negotiate. Nathan Dawson slapped Emily Cherry's back, signaling her to be quiet, but her screams only intensified, igniting another wave of fury within him. Remove a bullet? What was going on? Wasn't carrying a gun illegal in this country? And for an ordinary person to get shot, what? Had he just come back from a war? He certainly didn't look like a good guy. Emily Cherry blinked, watching the cold man remove his black suit. Whoa! His physique was truly impeccable. His bare torso was devoid of any excess fat, his skin crisscrossed with various wounds. Her slender fingers unconsciously traced the scars, a compliment escaping her lips, magnificent. Is this brain malfunctioning? Who fancies a man riddled with scars? Nathan Dawson, missing her hand again, fiercely ordered her to extract the bullet from his arm. Do it. Do what? Emily Cherry came to her senses, coughed lightly, and looked at the man who had torn off his blood-soaked clothes, offering her a scalpel with his bare body, truly wild to the extreme. Call him arrogant, call him defiant, isn't it just operating on a dog? She'll just comply. Taking the gleaming scalpel, she heated it over the alcohol lamp, then sliced into his arm, swoosh, blood splattering everywhere. Oops, seems like I cut the wrong spot, a little lower, swoosh, slicing his arm, thump, fresh blood spurting out. Huh. Where's the bullet? Oh right, forgot to tell you, I've never treated any living person before. Hashtag chapter 3, deliberate, you bloody brat, deliberate, wasn't it? No matter how tough and heroic Nathan Dawson was, he couldn't endure the surgery performed by Emily Cherry wielding the scalpel. His body slumped to the ground, fainting for the first time in his life from the pain. Emily Cherry looked at the man who had fainted from pain, her eyes filled with a sinister smile. For the third time, swoosh, she sliced his arm, thump, fresh blood spurted out. She accurately located the bullet, extracted it, her hands and feet regaining their usual agility, then applied medicine and bandaged his wound. Mimicking him, she snorted and uttered 3 words, "Serves you right." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the large glass windows into the lobby of Serenity Veterinary Hospital. Emily Cherry was carefully checking the pets, her heart filled with love. "Buddy, how are you feeling today? Is your throat still sore? If there are no major issues, you can go home to your owner tomorrow." A snow-white parrot, seemingly understanding the words of Emily Cherry, the head of the Animal Association, continuously nodded, repeating 2 words, "Go home." "Shadow, how about you? Still having diarrhea? Remember not to eat indiscriminately when you get home." Emily Cherry checked a black wolf that seemed much healthier, her hand affectionately stroking its head, speechless with affection. "Annie, poor girl, with a broken leg, you need to rest well. Lie down, no moving around. Emily Cherry carefully examined the wound of the teddy dog, Annie, with the seriousness as if she were its owner. Nathan Dawson woke up and saw a girl as beautiful as an angel. A delicate and lively small face, radiating a golden light, was solicitously inquiring about each animal in the room, as if these animals were all very familiar to her. Her gentle, melodious voice followed the curve of her lips, 2 dimples flickering in and out of sight. Her captivating charm made one want to embrace her, cherish and pamper her. Where is this? The room was full of cats and dogs, the air faintly smelling of antiseptic. Nathan Dawson interrupted the stranger's solicitous greetings to the animals, recalling her ferocious, almost predatory attitude from last night, thinking to himself, a living, breathing person like him, wasn't even worth as much as a bunch of animals. Emily Cherry gave the conscious man a sidelong glance, unwilling to waste words. Hospital. If you want compensation, speak clearly. This kind of woman, truly avaricious, her eyes lighting up at the sight of money. Having grasped her weakness, wouldn't she obediently comply? Nathan Dawson straightened up, issuing his command with authority. The 2 words, compensation, instantly sobered Emily Cherry. Carefully analyzing the credibility of his statement, fearing he might go back on his word later, displaying a clear case of borrowing money makes you a grandpa, collecting money makes you a grandson, a fawning smile appeared on her beautiful face as she rubbed her hands together. Serenity Veterinary Hospital, oh right, how much compensation does this leader intend to offer? Veterinary Hospital. Wasn't the sign last night just the word hospital? Looking at her obsequious demeanor, resembling nothing more than a money-grubbing worm, Nathan Dawson couldn't help but feel disgusted. 10 million. What? What? Was something wrong with her ears? Or was she hallucinating? Emily Cherry unconsciously raised her hands, bending her fingers as she grinned foolishly at him, her mind reeling from the figure. Damaging a gatepost, the main gate, and a lighted sign, could actually net her 10 million. Wait, don't celebrate too soon, what if she encountered a scammer? Emily Cherry tried to regain her composure, clearing her throat twice and feigning calmness as she asked, are you really willing to compensate 10 million? Let me tell you, I don't accept hell money. RMB, but, there's one condition. What condition? As long as it wasn't too unreasonable, she would agree. Hashtag chapter 4, I'm a veterinarian, 10 to the wound on my shoulder, until the gunshot wound heals. Nathan Dawson didn't know what had come over him, but his mind was filled with her elegant figure, like an angel descending from heaven, from earlier. He had never experienced such a loss of control before. If he couldn't find the answer, then he would keep her by his side and slowly extract the answer from her. Emily Cherry looked at the strange man sitting upright as if nothing had happened, unable to understand what schemes lay hidden beneath his handsome, indifferent face. Her thoughts were in disarray, a voice in her ear screaming not to go. This guy had her in his grasp, didn't he? Seeing his confident demeanor, she couldn't help but feel inexplicably annoyed. I only treat animals, because I'm a veterinarian. Wasn't this refusal enough? The implication being for him to quickly compensate and leave. You last night. Last night I treated you like a male dog, that's why I could act so precisely. Emily Cherry blurted out, not needing to look at him to sense his current fury. Afraid of me? Don't want the compensation anymore. Because she was cowardly, she didn't dare follow him. Nathan Dawson changed his tactics, using provocation against her hatred of men. Unexpectedly, he saw her raise her head and puff out her chest, a heroic posture with slightly raised eyebrows. Who's afraid of you? I'm thinking about who will take care of the small animals in the hospital after I follow you. Who's gonna fix the gatepost and the neon sign you smashed? Hotshot, you ain't gonna stiff a commoner like me on the damages, are ya? If anyone dares to Welsh, she wouldn't be a vegetarian, she'd sue him until he's ruined and disgraced, see if he still has the face to live in this world. Someone, take her away. Nathan Dawson looked directly at her, giving the order without turning his head. Besides the two living humans, there were only animals here. Who was he ordering? Emily Cherry looked around, seeing no other figures. She asked in confusion, "Who are you talking to?" "Yes, boss." Four tall, imposing men with restrained auras quickly entered the veterinary hospital lobby, standing straight before Nathan Dawson, replying respectfully in unison, making the animal-filled lobby even more eerie. "Boss? Quite a high-ranking position, huh? Is this the kind of man I can mess with?" Emily Cherry slightly regretted her impulsive action. Seeing the four tall subordinates approaching to take her away, she instinctively performed a sweeping kick, delivering a karate chop to the leading world-class bodyguard, instantly knocking him down. Pure badassery. Emily Cherry ran to Nathan Dawson with a flattering smile, bowing her head and admitting her mistake like a primary school student. "Hotshot, I was wrong, your magnanimity, everything I said was just hot air, you just need to compensate for the basic repair costs. How dare I take 10 million from you?" Her voice getting softer and softer, Emily Cherry smiled ingratiatingly, looking at his deathly expressionless face, her mournful tone gushing out. Adaptable, a little lady can also be. No need to risk her life to prove that the tiger eats people, right? Think Emily Cherry loves money, loves animals, but doesn't love men. "Boss, let her go. Is this little girl scared witless?" Her speech is jumbled, yet exudes a certain vitality, as if she's become flesh and blood. In her eyes, except for him, it's still him. Nathan Dawson saw his reflection in her eyes, his voice indifferent and emotionless. "Come here." Seeing her taking small steps towards him, getting closer and closer, finally pressing against his chest, the corner of his lips quietly curled up. He used his uninjured left arm to hoist her over his shoulder, ignoring the surprised expressions of his four subordinates, and walked out of the animal-filled lobby. Reaching a modified Hummer, even more extravagant than last night's, he cradled her like a treasure and placed her in the back seat. Hashtag Chapter 5, Resistance. Certain death, whoa, kidnapping. "Let me go, I want to get out of the car, get out." The word car ended in Nathan Dawson's passionate kiss. His large, calloused hand firmly gripped the back of her neck, authoritatively, not allowing her any refusal, his eyes signaling the driver in the front seat to start the car. What's your name?" Nathan Dawson looked down at the woman struggling to exhaustion in his arms, coldly asking her name. Him, that goddamn bastard, is his body made of cement? Exhausted all her strength, yet still unable to escape his grasp, saying his gunshot wound hasn't healed, who'd believe that? Emily Cherry, panting, pouted her lips, refusing to tell him. "Oh, quite the stubborn little thing, aren't you?" Pity, no matter how unruly a subordinate, before him, Nathan Dawson, they must obey. "No more nonsense with you." His firm lips pressed down once more, precisely covering her luscious red ones. There are many ways to make her fear, it just depends on what she chooses. His wild tongue invaded her mouth, entwining with her fragrant tongue relentlessly. A long while later, Nathan Dawson reluctantly ended this fiery kiss, two words escaping his throat: name. What incense did she burn in her past life to allow him to be reborn so well? This kind of playboy rolling around in high society is truly a scoundrel. Emily Cherry raised the back of her hand, fiercely wiping her red lips, glancing at him before saying her name, Emily Cherry. Emily Cherry to eat. Idiot, did you even finish elementary school? Shaking her head, she sarcastically explained, Emily Cherry. Hearing her name, Nathan Dawson fell silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on her face. What is he looking at? So intently. And he's not punishing her for her sarcasm? Emily Cherry felt extremely uncomfortable under his intense stare, wanting to pull the car door open and jump out. Anything would be better than enduring this inner torment. Clearing her throat twice, she raised her small hand, waving it in front of Nathan Dawson's eyes, breaking the strange atmosphere in the car. And you? What's your name? I can't keep calling you leader, can I? The higher the position, the more humble one should be, right? Nathan Dawson. The Dawson family, the ones who control S-City? It's said Dawson's father is a founding father of the domestic security company. He spent decades training generations of young men into bodyguards employed by national leaders and nobles. Dawson's mother is a young lady of high society, currently the head of a song and dance troupe. Nathan Dawson is the eldest son of the Dawson family, a rising star in the global security system, the supreme CEO of N.K Security Company, fully taking over his father's business, monopolizing 80% of the global security market share. Nathan Dawson, along with Kyle Thomas, the crown prince of the city, and 3 others, form the five-colored group that holds the nation's economic lifeline. Each has their own specialty, handsome appearance, and noble temperament, earning them the title of Dream Princes. Emily Cherry never expected to provoke this powerful, influential, and hot-tempered scion of a noble family. Initially, she thought he was just an ordinary man with a high position, but unexpectedly, he turned out to be the hot-headed Nathan Dawson. Emily Cherry's face paled, abandoning all struggles. Run. Certain death. Resist. Certain death. The 2 words, Nathan Dawson, are a symbol of nobility. Looking down at the stiff and cold Emily Cherry, an inexplicable anger surged within him. Before, all the women, upon hearing his prestigious name, would actively throw themselves at him, sweetly seducing him. Unlike her, a dead fish was more lively. His usual exuberance gone, along with his teasing demeanor, he lifted her chin with his index finger, nibbled her earlobe, and murmured in a voice only she could hear, "Do you want me to kill you? Get away from me." Numb from Nathan Dawson's bite, Emily Cherry shoved him away, fear of being shot dead right there in the Hummer overriding any other desire. Her small face regained its animation as she warily eyed him. Chapter 6, Are You Addicted to Hugging Me? Indeed, this defiant, furious Emily Cherry was precisely the woman Nathan Dawson wanted to abduct. Let Yun Gang. 3 words, spoken by a different person just one night later. Emily Cherry slapped the rough hand holding her, coldly rejecting him. Suddenly, the Hummer jolted. A volley of whistling bullets slammed into the vehicle. Before the 2 escort SUVs ahead could react, more rounds ripped through the air, shattering the bulletproof glass. Nathan Dawson's face hardened. Pulling Emily Cherry's soft form close, he locked her in his embrace and barked, M4A1, serpentine ahead, evasive maneuvers. Driver, no engagement, full retreat. Nathan Dawson sat ramrod straight in the back of the Hummer, issuing his latest directive. They were outgunned, returning fire would only worsen their situation. He had to ensure the safe retreat of all his men. Ah! Hands clasped over her head, Emily Cherry, experiencing her first firefight, was nearly thrown from her seat by the bucking Hummer. A scream tore from her throat, a desperate release of the terror gripping her heart. "Shoo, don't be afraid. I'm here." Hearing her terrified scream, Nathan Dawson's large hand gently stroked her back, silencing her. He reassured her that as long as he was there, no harm would come to her. Surprisingly, he was being helpful in this crisis. Since he offered a lifeline, Emily Cherry wasn't about to refuse. Clutching his stiff black suit, she buried her face against him, seeking the safest haven. She didn't care if he mocked her, survival was paramount. She was an ostrich, who was she afraid of? Eyes fixed forward, Nathan Dawson calmly waited as the Hummer snaked its way 2,000 meters ahead, calculating the M4A1's maximum range. Certain they were beyond the enemy's ambush zone, he cast an amused, exasperated glance at the woman playing ostrich. He rapped on the driver's seat, signaling for full acceleration. They would soon be within the Yin family's territory, let's see who dared to pursue them then. Ha! The Hummer wasn't swerving anymore. The nausea subsided, and the barrage of bullets impacting the vehicle had ceased. Her face still pressed against Nathan Dawson's chest, Emily Cherry took a quick glance at the vehicle's interior, even more ravaged than the night before. She patted her chest, exhaling deeply. Waiting a bit longer to ensure the danger had passed, she finally pulled away. This little brat, only now does she realize his goodness, doesn't she? Nathan Dawson gently stroked the long hair cascading over her shoulders and back, not correcting her current timidity. He retrieved his phone, deftly punched in a long string of numbers, and commanded in a deep voice, thoroughly investigate the latest moves of the M Nation against the Y government. Send men to clear the area within a 100-mile radius of Serenity Veterinary Hospital. No media interviews or reports are permitted. If any information is leaked, you will be held accountable. Understood, boss. Hey, girl, are you addicted to hugging me? It wasn't that he didn't want the beauty in his arms, but the alluring scent emanating from her soft body was pure torture. He feared if she lingered any longer, he would ravish her right there in the car. Who's addicted to hugging him? She just borrowed his chest for a moment, and he's already getting cocky. Realizing the Hummer had been speeding along for a while, Emily Cherry finally lifted her head, releasing her grip on his sturdy coat. Her small face flushed crimson, refusing to acknowledge her previous ostrich-like posture. It's all your fault. You committed too many sins in your past life, and now you're paying for it with your life. Is this brat so happy to see him die? Deserves a spanking. Nathan Dawson's breath suddenly hitched. Looking at her small face flushed with embarrassment, he could no longer suppress his primal desire for her body. His calloused hand reached directly for the black business suit beneath her white lab coat. Chapter 7, Preparing to Counterattack Dawson Family Villa. This two-story villa was located on the outskirts of Stonemore City, in a particularly secluded spot, only 20 minutes away from the heavily guarded 24/7 Dawson mansion. Situated within a wild botanical garden, the villa was surrounded by emerald green. From any angle, it was indistinguishable from the ancient trees within the garden. The interior, dominated by black, was easily defensible and difficult to penetrate, a secret hideout. Its owner, Nathan Dawson, spent 9 out of 10 days here. The jet-black marble floor littered with cigarette butts, Nathan Dawson, still not satisfied, continued to smoke intensely. His nonchalant demeanor caused the 2 lieutenants sitting there to exchange glances. Reporting, boss. A subordinate, clutching a folder under his arm, saluted Nathan Dawson and respectfully presented the document. Nathan Dawson waved him away, opened the folder, and read carefully, his brow furrowing with the contents. The latest intelligence revealed that both last night's and today's ambushes were orchestrated by the Clear Path organization, funded by the M Nation government, aiming to eliminate all threats to M Nation's national interests. A month later, the joint counterterrorism exercise with the East Side was approaching, putting considerable pressure on the M Nation's forces. They were desperately seeking ways to sabotage this exercise. N.K., led by him, posed the greatest threat to M Nation security agencies, prompting them to urgently dispatch the Clear Path organization to infiltrate the country and find an opportunity to assassinate him. The head of NK, boss, any bad news from Intel? Connor Steele, dark-skinned and powerfully built, Nathan Dawson's second-in-command and leader of Team A, the domestic VIP protection unit of NK Security, saw the fury in Nathan Dawson's face. He pulled up a chair, his voice booming like a bronze bell, brimming with loyalty to his dedicated superior. The Pathfinders set a trap. Boss, what's the plan to strike back? Just give the word, and the brothers are ready. Philip Drake, CEO of NK's International Protection Division, propped his chin on his hand, his face more alluring than a woman's, his eyes already deciphering the document's contents. Compared to Connor Steele's integrity, Philip Drake exuded a darker energy. His sole thought was to engage the American-trained Pathfinders in a proper fight, doubting their survival against his team of seasoned operatives. Tom Drake, don't do anything rash. The joint exercise is just a month away, NK can't lose face. Philip Drake's meaning was clear: at this crucial juncture, no mistakes could be tolerated. Nathan Dawson suppressed their eagerness for a showdown, waiting for the opportune moment. "Boss, if they're playing dirty, we can't just stand by. I'm with Tom Drake on this one. Are we going to let the Americans laugh at us? What are the Pathfinders to NK? I'll risk my life to protect you, boss, let's take them down." For the first time, Connor Steele sided with Philip Drake, slamming his massive hand on the table, his words resounding with conviction. For the first time, Connor Steele sided with Philip Drake, slamming his massive hand on the table, his words resounding with conviction. "Oh, Hunter Wilde finally gets it. Seriously, boss, just give us the signal. If you don't want the brothers to take risks, I'll arrange it. We'll handle those turtles quietly." #### Chapter 8, His Woman, Who Dares Disrespect. Is that alright then? A real man must be strong. How can we achieve anything if we're always afraid of our own shadow? Just because he's more handsome than a woman doesn't mean he has to act like one. The saying goes, if someone doesn't offend me, I won't offend them. But if they do, I will destroy them utterly. Nathan Dawson extinguished his cigarette, slowly exhaling a plume of smoke. He looked at his two impassioned subordinates, his hands resting casually on the edge of the black marble table, his long fingers tapping rhythmically. With a cold, authoritative demeanor, he calmly ordered, "Dig 3 feet deep to find the Pathfinder's lair. Find an opportunity and eliminate this festering sore. Tell the brothers to be careful." "Understood, boss. I'll get right on it." Not wanting Philip Drake to steal the spotlight, Connor Steele promptly stood at attention, saluted, turned, and ran out of the meeting room. "That damn bear." Philip Drake scowled, seeing Connor Steele take the lead. "Cut the crap, I have a real job for you." He knew Philip Drake deliberately yielded the opportunity to Connor Steele, wanting him to earn some merit. He thought about how Connor Steele had held the position of Team A leader for several years now. He deserved a promotion before retiring. Nathan Dawson knew his brothers could be boisterous behind closed doors, but outside, they were brothers in life and death. However, as the company's ultimate decision-maker, his primary concern, regardless of the situation, was their safety. Any news regarding the woman the boss brought back? Philip Drake, knowing nothing could be hidden from the boss, cleared his throat and swiftly changed the subject. "Sister-in-law, from now on, we'll call her sister-in-law." Nathan Dawson's woman. Disrespected? Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. The detailed information shows I knew all this after hearing her name. "Tom Drake, you're my deputy, but I consider you a brother. 6 years ago, if it weren't for you, I would have died in that enemy kidnapping. I owe you, and I will repay you." The events of that year, buried deep within his memory, had tormented Nathan Dawson for years. Regrettably, the man was gone. No matter how difficult, he had to force himself to move on. Sister-in-law's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. They broke up years ago. For some reason, Nathan Dawson didn't want the current Emily Cherry connected to another man. "Boss? Are you in love with sister-in-law?" Knowing her ex has 1,000 connections to the head of the assassin group, the one the US spent billions cultivating, maybe sister-in-law knew her ex's true identity all along and just didn't tell you. Are you going to let her just observe you from close range? Using the photo of sister-in-law that the boss sent, Philip Drake accessed S-City's internal security network, retrieving her complete life history. If the boss didn't want to delve into her background, fine. But her ex-boyfriend, potentially the head of the assassins? Just going to let that slide? Let her stay by his side under surveillance? Her approach could be a grand conspiracy. If the man involved wasn't worried, what could he do? In love with her? In love with Emily Cherry after just one night? Impossible. He wasn't that desperate, falling for anyone he met. It's just, the image of that person's sacrifice kept flashing in his mind. Nathan Dawson irritably lit another cigarette, taking a harsh drag. Everything related to her, he ordered coldly, not a word to my parents. Boss, keeping this from the old man won't be easy. If he finds out, my head might not stay on my shoulders. In S City, heck, the whole country, who didn't know the Dawson elders yearned for their wild, prodigal son to settle down, marry, and produce an heir. Chapter 9, Why Must Women Make Things Difficult for Women? Every other week, they arranged blind dates for Nathan Dawson. He'd probably met every eligible young lady of note in the city, yet none had captured his heart. It drove the hot-tempered, white-haired Mr. Dawson mad. He was practically ready to hold a gun to his son's head to set a wedding date and get himself a chubby grandson. If you don't want to be shipped off to Africa to socialize with the natives, shut your mouth. What about the crown prince on the other side? I have my own plans. Nathan Dawson gave Philip Drake a pointed look, dismissing him with a wave of his hand. He stubbed out his cigarette and headed straight for the second floor of the villa. May I ask when I can leave? Emily Cherry looked around. The place was devoid of any sign of life, as if swallowed by an endless darkness. The thought of that cold-hearted devil, Nathan Dawson, made her teeth bite into her lower lip. Her body trembled involuntarily. Her hands gripped the golden doorknob, her eyes revealing a yearning for the outside world. Please return to your room, miss. Without the boss's order, no one can let you go. A strong female bodyguard in uniform, frowning at the fidgety Emily Cherry who wanted to leave, extended her right hand into the room, respectfully gesturing an invitation. Miss, please help me, I don't know Nathan Dawson, not at all. Meeting this devil last night was the biggest mistake of her life. Emily Cherry cursed her greed countless times, 10 million, she had to be alive to spend it. Please return to your room, miss. Miss, we're both women, why make things difficult for each other? Hey, miss. Miss, excuse me, can you hear me? Hey, hey. Well, talking too much is like playing a lute to a buffalo. A bodyguard's duty is to obey orders, they basically won't interfere in their superior's private affairs. Her pretty face filled with defeat, Emily Cherry wasted no more words, slamming the door shut, irritably lying down on the large double bed, letting herself sink into endless darkness. How is she? Nathan Dawson, after taking a hot shower in the hotel bathroom, only wrapped in a black towel around his waist, strode firmly to the main bedroom, seeing his deputy Lily Kirkland standing with her legs apart, hands clasped behind her back, at the door with an imposing and majestic air, coldly inquiring about Emily Cherry. Reporting to the CEO, following your instructions, the young lady hasn't stepped out of the room. Lily Kirkland stood at attention, answering honestly. Lily, you should still call me boss, like Hunter Wilde, Tom Drake and the others do. Remember when you first joined NK, you called me that too, then I don't know what got into you, you insisted on respectfully calling me CEO. You're a smart person, why deliberately keep a distance from your superior? Nathan Dawson knew she had been called away by her father for a talk, and had become distant upon returning. It seemed the old man's reach was getting longer and longer, even the people around him, he wanted to control. It was truly unimaginable. Lily Kirkland glanced at Nathan Dawson's handsome, indifferent face, nodding in greeting once more, yes, boss. Speak your mind, everyone under NK speaks their mind. Nathan Dawson looked at Lily Kirkland's small, tanned face full of doubt, bluntly telling her to say what she wanted. Boss, the young lady inside, is she your girlfriend? If it weren't for her deep love for the boss, why would she be summoned by Lord Ingram for a lecture? If it weren't for her deep love for the boss, why would she deliberately distance herself? If it weren't for her deep love for the boss, why would she cut her long hair, disguising herself as a man to infiltrate the all-male NK? If it weren't for her love for him. Chapter 10, Marrying her, nothing to do with love, from now on, you should call her sister-in-law. He will marry her, nothing to do with love, only because of a debt of gratitude he must repay. As you command, boss. It's time to give up now, but can the blazing fire of love really be extinguished just like that? Lily Kirkland suppressed all the resentment and distress in her heart, opening the door for him, inviting him in. So, Nathan Dawson, you've finally arrived. This cold, tyrannical king of hell, what right does he have to imprison me? Emily Cherry puffed out her cheeks, catching his distinctive scent in the air, but resolutely refused to answer, remaining still on the double bed. Secretly glancing at his icy expression, she thought, is he not happy? Isn't he so capable? Dragging her to this godforsaken place, not letting her take half a step out of the room. Emily Cherry, oh Emily Cherry, you must stay calm, don't provoke him, for heaven's sake, don't anger him again. The damned woman, pretending to sleep. Looking at her clad in only a black shirt, her slender figure all the more alluring, Nathan Dawson followed the line of the black shirt. Humph, she certainly knows how to entice a man. His Adam's apple bobbed. Without a word, he lay down beside her, his long arm reaching out to pull her soft body close. Gotten used to holding her, hasn't he? Ignoring him, is he getting even more audacious? Emily Cherry truly couldn't endure it any longer, her whole body stiff and cold. Let me go. This is kidnapping. As the head of NK Security, you know the law, you're breaking the law. Anything else? Hearing her accusations, Nathan Dawson's eyebrows furrowed, but the corners of his lips curled into a stunning arc. He flipped her over, pinning her beneath him, silently waiting for the rest of her disgruntled complaints. What is he doing, pressing down on her? She reached out, slapping his backside, only to meet the wild coldness in his eyes, piercing through the thick darkness, fixed on her small face. Emily Cherry couldn't help but panic, swallowing hard, trying to compose herself as she looked back at him. A woman like Emily Cherry, what guts, daring to look him directly in the eye for so long, not afraid of death. Nathan Dawson looked at her, outwardly elegant and gentle, inwardly strong and stubborn, his expression cold and domineering, a smile playing on his lips, all the more contradictory and mocking. He knew that if what Tom Drake said was truly connected to her, he would personally end her, showing no mercy. He hoped she wouldn't gamble with her life. What are you looking at? Never seen a beautiful vet before. If his gaze was cold and indifferent, then that smirk was truly terrifying. For some reason, seeing that smile, Emily Cherry felt like she'd fallen into an ice cellar. Girl, I'm warning you, don't betray me. The consequences are not something you can bear. Nathan Dawson looked into her clear eyes, murmuring these words. Emily Cherry was a little taken aback, not understanding the deeper meaning of his words. It seemed like he was speaking to her, yet also speaking through her to someone else. Utterly bizarre. The saying goes, even a powerful dragon cannot suppress a local snake. Being by his side definitely meant complying with him. She nodded vaguely, taking it as a reply. Come, I'll carry you to bathe. With that, Nathan Dawson scooped her up, kicked open the bathroom door, and tossed her into the circular tub filled with cold water. You madman. Cough, cough, I've already bathed. Cough, cough, cough. Emily Cherry choked on several mouthfuls of cold bathwater, struggling to sit up. Nathan Dawson, not waiting for her to steady herself against the bathtub's edge, shed his black towel, stepped into the water, and lifted her. His large hands ripped the black men's shirt from her body, possessing her savagely. Only when the protracted night finally ended did he release her, long since unconscious from the pain. Chapter 11, Excruciating Pain, Hazy Consciousness. Only in the oblivion of unconsciousness could she escape the torment, couldn't she? Nathan Dawson carried her, her skin pale and wrinkled, back to the room's double bed. Retrieving the tattoo equipment he'd had Lily Kirkland prepare, he etched a private, intricate design onto her bare back. Pain. So much pain. Who was inflicting this agony upon her body? Her consciousness hazy, Emily Cherry feared she lacked the strength to see clearly. Pain, After a day and night of unconsciousness, Emily Cherry barely regained a sliver of awareness. The slightest movement sent a searing pain through her, pinning her to the bed. Tilting her head slightly, she focused on a faint glimmer in the endless darkness, beyond which sat a stern-faced lord of hell, head bowed in writing. What kind of man was he, really? The savage possessiveness from before, the current quiet composure, which was the true face of Nathan Dawson? Awake? Nathan Dawson lifted his head from the mountain of NK paperwork. Seeing her staring, he rose, walked to the bedside, sat, and gently lifted her small, flushed face, kissing it tenderly. He removed his impeccably tailored black suit jacket, but made no further move to offer solicitous care. Damn it, her back was burning. What happened? What could cause such an injury to her back? 5 years of medical school seemingly hadn't covered this. Emily Cherry, riddled with questions, shifted onto her stomach, the aching part of her back facing upwards, adding this transgression to Nathan Dawson's tab. If it weren't for him, she'd still be a happy veterinarian, blissfully spending her days with her beloved animals. Now, not only had she failed to get the money, but she was also kidnapped and imprisoned. Who had she offended? Emily Cherry, biting hard into the pillow in frustration, blurted out, hungry. I want to eat. No crying, no fuss, no hanging herself, just a simple request for food. This little girl was certainly interesting. Nathan Dawson, surprised by Emily Cherry's words, looked at her with astonishment. I want to eat. Idiot, did he need it spelled out for him? The bedroom, darker than hell, left Emily Cherry disoriented about how long she'd slept. The throbbing pain in her back amplified her hunger, and she tore into the pillow as if it were Nathan Dawson. Nathan Dawson bent down, gently kissing her slightly deflated, slender back with careful tenderness. He then lay beside her, propping up his tanned, rugged face with one hand, his deep, magnetic voice rumbling from his throat, "Woman, I'm captivated by your alluring beauty. You, veterinarian, are truly worth 10 million. His eyes narrowed dangerously, a burning gaze threatening to incinerate her as Nathan Dawson kissed her full red lips, consuming her inch by inch with a savage passion until she melted completely. I'll devour you first, then eat dinner. The girl before him, more delectable than any delicacy, this statement a command, offering her no refusal. Truth be told, he'd had countless women before, military sweethearts, sheltered daughters, wealthy wives, innocent students, television announcers. But he didn't know why he quickly grew tired of them. No one, not like Emily Cherry, had ever made him want to stop yet unable to, incapable of letting go. Devour her. For the third time. Did he not realize someone hadn't had a single drop of water in 2 days and 2 nights? Emily Cherry, wincing, brushed away the large hand on her thigh and, giving him a look reserved for observing rare animals, held out her left hand before his chest. If you're going to devour me first, hand over 10 million. Talk is cheap. With real money in her pocket, she could speak with more authority. This time, she'd consider it a loss, but if she didn't recoup some capital, what would she tell Buddy and Shadow back home? At least she could improve their meals. Hashtag Chapter 12, I'm worth this 10 million, you dare ask for 10 million? A cold glint flashed in Nathan Dawson's eyes, his indulgence gone as he rolled over, settling his weight on her waist and roaring furiously. I'm worth this 10 million. Emily Cherry writhed, the pain in her back causing her to break out in a cold sweat. Shifting her arm, she continued to hold out her hand, demanding her 10 million in compensation. Write down whatever amount you want. Adding or subtracting zeros doesn't affect me in the slightest. I've never mistreated any woman. Was her allure so potent that Nathan Dawson was now entertaining the idea of using money to confine her, to make her his possession? He left the neatly made bed and returned to the illuminated rosewood desk. Retrieving his checkbook from a drawer, he tossed it in front of Emily Cherry, telling her to fill in the amount herself. 10 million is the compensation you promised me. I don't need a penny more. There's money between us, but I, Emily Cherry, don't need your charity. Taking the fountain pen, she wrote the amount of 10 million on the check, then tore the filled-out check from the book and presented it to Nathan Dawson, instructing him to sign it. Then, she could hold her head high during her confinement. She took the pen and wrote the amount of 10 million on the check, then tore the filled-out check from the book and presented it to Nathan Dawson, instructing him to sign it. Then, she could hold her head high during her confinement. As long as her gunshot wound healed, she would endure. And then, Nathan Dawson wanted to see what this stubborn veterinarian would do, knowing she wasn't after the money but was forced by circumstances to lower her head. Judging by her forbearance, he suspected that given the slightest chance, she'd vanish to the ends of the earth, never to be found again. Of course, she'd be bringing the 10 million along with that herd of critters. Damn it, she really has a knack for pissing men off, loving money, loving animals, just not loving men. Knowing escape was impossible, Emily Cherry turned around defiantly, biting her lower lip, taking a few deep breaths. She pulled down Nathan Dawson's mockingly handsome face and, her red lips trembling, kissed his icy ones. Closing her eyes to hide the boundless panic within, she surrendered herself to the endless darkness. This woman, skilled, is she? The look of enjoyment on her face, utterly repulsive. Nathan Dawson cut short her provocation. His long fingers lifted her chin, turning passivity into dominance as he deepened the kiss on Emily Cherry's trembling red lips. Emily Cherry winced, the metallic scent of blood faint in the air. Nathan Dawson watched the crimson beads welling on her beautiful back. Gripping her shoulders tightly, preventing any further movement, he leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Tonight, you'll taste the mingling of flesh and bone." Even now, she maintained her stubborn resilience, forbidding herself from making a sound. Teeth clenched on the pillow, she fought to suppress the strange sensations coursing through her. Cry out. Don't hold back. Underscore 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 underscore. Nathan Dawson paused, then bent down to kiss her stiff neck, a gentle coaxing. It's 6 o'clock. Time to wake up. Nathan Dawson, freshly showered and dressed in a sharp black suit, looked divinely handsome. He flaunted his uniformed allure before the woman sleeping face down on the bed, but the effect was decidedly unclear. Don't make a racket. Let me sleep a little longer. Emily Cherry mumbled, turning her face to the wall and drifting back to sleep. Damn it, girl, get up. Or I won't be so polite. #### Chapter 13, Don't go out and lose face. Glancing at Emily Cherry turning over to sleep again, Nathan Dawson raised an eyebrow. His tall frame settled onto the double bed, and his calloused hand delivered a sharp slap, crack, so forceful the sound echoed through the bedroom. Since starting at the medical academy, Emily Cherry had embraced an early-to-bed, early-to-rise routine. 10 p.m. lights out, 7 a.m. wake up, a regularity that made her seem like an old woman. However, 3 days of Nathan Dawson's captivity and relentless lovemaking had wrecked her biological clock. Her body felt trampled by 100 elephants, too sore to move. Emily Cherry, do you want me to do you again? Nathan Dawson's voice, laced with barely contained fury, lowered as his hard lips pressed against her small earlobe. He nipped and whispered. Ah. Under Nathan Dawson's potent threat, Emily Cherry snapped her eyes open. Ignoring the stinging pain in her back, she scrambled to sit up. 3 days without a drop of water had left her dehydrated. Dizziness sent her falling back onto the bed, the black duvet pooling at her waist. Forgetting to pull it up, she lay there, the picture of languid morning vulnerability. Nathan Dawson, his brow furrowed deeply, a shadow of darkness flitting across his eyes at her fragility, silently lifted the blanket. Ignoring her shivering form, he picked up the undergarments and a small set of camouflage fatigues his subordinates had brought in 15 minutes prior. Dress her. Don't let this little wildcat tempt him here. Cover her up, don't let her embarrass me outside. If those starved pups saw a woman with such an alluring figure, wouldn't they all be chasing after her? Nathan Dawson truly didn't want a second person to witness her beauty. Even basic attire like the powerful black outfit was rejected. From now on, she would only wear small-sized men's camouflage, with no skin showing whatsoever. Drab camouflage? Zipped up to the neck. What kind of clown show is this? And what did he just say? Don't embarrass him outside. Did that mean she could finally leave this room and breathe some fresh air? Emily Cherry, unexpectedly given a chance to go outside after 3 days of confinement, grabbed Nathan Dawson's black vest, asking hurriedly, "Can I go out now? Are you really letting me go?" Great, great, ow, not painful, not painful. As long as she could leave this place, even death would be acceptable. Emily Cherry's heart soared. Clutching his arm, she sat up, afraid he'd change his mind, and dashed towards the door, her desperation earning a razor-sharp glance from Nathan Dawson. "You can go out. Come with me to NK for a debriefing." Nathan Dawson cut short her hopeful thoughts, his voice cold. What did he mean? Go with him to NK for a debriefing? Debriefing about what? She couldn't possibly be clinging to Buddha's leg, transforming herself into a bodyguard, could she? Besides, she was just a veterinarian. Go to NK to treat living people? If something happened, wouldn't she be courting death? Not to mention, right in front of her was Nathan Dawson. Hadn't treating this young master's gunshot wound already cost her enough? No, absolutely not. The mere thought was terrifying. Emily Cherry shook her head vehemently, preferring to faint again rather than put her life on the line. NK's canine trainer. Interested? Nathan Dawson was well aware of her apprehension. Even with 1,000 excuses, she couldn't refuse his orders. Didn't someone always say they loved animals more than men? So, he'd give her a tasty morsel. He didn't believe she wouldn't bite. Chapter 14, could she escape his grasp? NK's canine trainer. Wow, that sounded tempting. Especially those well-trained hounds, they'd definitely be smarter and more obedient than Shadow and the others. If she trained them for a while, they'd be truly invincible. But was Nathan Dawson really that kind? Wouldn't this be a trap, wanting her to walk right into his net? Emily Cherry scrutinized him for a long while. Nothing could sway this icy lord of hell. Sigh, oh well, even if she could go outside, could she truly escape his grasp? After careful consideration, Emily Cherry, deflated like a punctured balloon, abandoned all hope of escape and surrendered to him. Fine, this dog trainer position, I'll do it. But about NK? This woman was intelligent, understanding the wisdom of adapting to circumstances. Her resilience impressed even him. Nathan Dawson embraced her slender yet strong frame, inhaling the faint scent of her hair. A lingering, deeply conflicting aftertaste, he once again used a command to suppress the anxiety and worry in his heart. I've informed the departments, but I'm warning you, in N.K, speak less, work more. Obey my orders strictly, and absolutely no fraternizing with the male subordinates. Emily Cherry trembled with rage upon hearing his decree. Nathan Dawson was so domineering. Did he mean to control her body and mind? There truly wasn't a single day of peace. Wait a minute. Nathan Dawson was putting her into N.K, the core force of global security. He wouldn't subject her to the same intense training as the men, would he? Good heavens, such an important matter should have been discussed beforehand. Clearing her throat, she stated her condition. Can I be exempt from N.K's internal training? Yes. There was one thing Nathan Dawson deliberately omitted. N.K's two dog trainers, Lily Kirkland and Emily Cherry, after completing their dog training duties, would also undergo rigorous physical and combat training led by his special team. He hoped she wouldn't hate him too much by then. After a long pause, he forced out a single word in response. Yes, meant he agreed, right? Emily Cherry watched him carry her towards the door, a vague reply escaping her throat. She really wanted to treat him like a male dog and ruthlessly castrate him on the spot. Cold-hearted Hades, just you wait. Once she finished training the dogs, she'd have them tear him apart. For now, she'd play along. Sir, breakfast is ready. Please join Madam for the meal. Seeing Nathan Dawson carrying Emily Cherry downstairs, the Ingram family butler hastily opened the covered dishes, inviting them to eat. Eat quickly. Nathan Dawson, ignoring the surprised butler, placed Emily Cherry on a dining chair and served her a bowl of porridge. He then casually inquired about any overnight calls or urgent documents while reading the newspaper. Sir, the old master called at 9:12 p.m., requesting your presence at the house within 2 days. Prince Kyle Thomas called at 10 p.m., inviting you to gather at the Heavenly Whale Palace. Young Master Jason Parker from the hospital called at 12 a.m., requesting Madam's presence at Parker Hospital today for a conversation. All N.K administrative documents have been approved, there are no new documents at this time. After the young butler's report, he sensed the sir's growing irritation and quickly excused himself from the dining room. You know Jason Parker? Yes. How well? There are no levels. Tell me, do you want to see him today? Truly magnificent. Emily Cherry gripped her camouflage fatigues, gazing out the car window at the impeccably arrayed security detail, their training chants ringing in her ears. A murmur of admiration escaped her throat, only here did she feel the thrill of pride coursing through her veins. Nathan Dawson glanced at the woman beside him, well aware of her fascination with the imposing men. Her rapt attention fueled his own desire, intensifying his possessiveness. He asked her a question, his right hand leaving the steering wheel to graze her skin beneath the fatigues. Reaching the innermost sanctum of NK, 4 rows of 80 bodyguards, clad in Kevlar helmets and wielding heavy iron batons, snapped to attention at the sight of Nathan Dawson's SUV. Boss, they roared in unison. As Nathan Dawson parked and lowered the window, 2 young squad leaders rushed forward, opening the doors for him and Emily Cherry. Reporting, boss, they stated respectfully. All NK personnel are assembled, awaiting your command. Nathan Dawson. About that. Emily Cherry, startled by the sight of the NK personnel in their distinctive uniforms, clutched Nathan Dawson's sleeve, silently pleading with him to not make a spectacle, especially with the trainees staring at her with varying expressions. That damned cold-blooded Lord of Hell, hadn't he promised her no special training? Was this punishment for hiding Professor Jason Parker? Trapped between a rock and a hard place, Emily Cherry flushed crimson, fidgeting in the passenger seat. Need me to carry you out? From today on, your training alias is 9527. Regardless of who you were before, on this training ground, you have only one identity, bodyguard. Man or woman, it's all the same. Tom Drake, Charles Strong, back to your squads. Ignoring Emily Cherry's embarrassment, Nathan Dawson signaled for Connor Steele and Philip Drake to return to formation. Exiting the vehicle, he addressed the ranks of NK bodyguards, good work, everyone. Attention. Right, dress. Philip Drake, back in formation, his handsome face stern, barked the commands he repeated daily. The subordinates snapped their heads to the right, their feet shuffling into alignment. 3 seconds later, Philip Drake bellowed, at ease. Tell me, what are your names? Nathan Dawson stood with legs apart, fists clenched behind his back, his gaze sweeping over the 80 bodyguards before him, men ready to die for NK. His voice resonated with authority. Reporting, boss. We have only one name, the Spectres. The 80 Spectres answered as one, pride evident in their voices. They raised their iron batons to their chests, their handsome faces radiating loyalty. Excellent. You will always be NK's most elite specters, the highest paid bodyguards in the world. The specters, constantly facing danger, embodied the highest honor of the protection world. NK represented their unwavering commitment, devoid of individualism, focused solely on national interests and the company's prestige. Nathan Dawson, their leader, stood ready to sacrifice everything, tearing apart enemy plots and attacks. Yes, we are the Spectres. A thunderous, unified response echoed through the ranks. Hardcore, utterly hardcore. This fervent scene, previously only witnessed on television, and even then portrayed by actors, couldn't compare to seeing it firsthand. Even Emily Cherry, who had never undergone any physical training, felt a surge of pride after hearing the exchange between Nathan Dawson and his subordinates. Her hands clammy with cold sweat, she stood silently in the last row of the formation, hoping the authoritative figure issuing commands might overlook her presence. 95-27, fall in. From today forward, you are part of NK. On this training ground, men and women are equal. Individualism will not be tolerated. Follow my command, left face, commence a 50 km warm-up run. Nathan Dawson's sharp gaze swept over the woman hiding in the back row, singling her out and ordering her to join the ranks for the day's warm-up run. 9527. Been watching too much Stephen Chow, haven't you? That cold-hearted Lord of Hell Nathan Dawson clearly doesn't want her to live. Making her join the ranks in front of all the imposing NK bodyguards. At her height of 1.65 meters, standing among a group of imposing bodyguards averaging over 1.8 meters tall, Emily Cherry felt utterly out of place. She had never felt so underdeveloped. And what did he say? Run 50 kilometers with weight? Carrying that heavy iron bar? Her. She'd be nothing but skin and bones by the end. Back when her father was alive, she'd endured some physical training and self-defense techniques, but nothing as formal and rigorous as this. If it's truly unbearable, just withdraw. Don't die in this man's lair before even catching a glimpse of the hound, let alone dying in his bed. Hey! Seeing the imposing NK bodyguards start their run, Emily Cherry, holding the training iron bar a soldier had handed her, remained rooted to the spot, hoping Nathan Dawson would honor his promise and exempt her from this deadly exercise. From now on, address me with report before speaking, or I'll add more exercises. Nathan Dawson looked directly at Emily Cherry's complaining face, ignoring her trembling body. He pointed towards the vanishing NK members, signaling her to hurry and catch up, lest she inevitably get lost. Report. Emily Cherry's forehead throbbed with anger at his harsh command. Speak. This girl was interesting. Instead of arguing, she obediently reported. He'd hear what she had to say for now. Nathan Dawson's voice deepened. May I ask, boss, if one goes back on their word, should they be punished? He'd clearly promised her, yet someone wasn't keeping their word. Sooner or later, karma would catch up. Oh, Emily Cherry, you're such a pig. No, pigs are smarter than you. You've been tricked by Nathan Dawson so many times and still haven't learned your lesson. Now, just obey him and run yourself to death. Shut your trap, girlie, or I'll add another 5 kilometers. Now scram. Nathan Dawson knew who she was referring to, thinking to himself that he had only grunted in acknowledgement earlier, not making any promises. Therefore, her training must continue until completion. Who told you to shoulder this responsibility? If you don't intensify your training now, you'll become a target, dying without even knowing how. The more I indulge you, the more I harm you. Lord of Hell, you better remember this, you and I are sworn enemies. Emily Cherry knew Nathan Dawson was serious. With his tyrannical and wild behavior over the past 3 days, he would probably add more kilometers to her run. If she didn't run, who knew what other nationally shocking things he would do to her? Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. She bit her lower lip until it bled, then glared fiercely at him, slung her rifle over her shoulder, and chased after the large troop that had become small dots in the distance. Chapter 17, The Devilish X. It seemed that at this moment, Emily Cherry could somewhat understand the feelings of her deceased father, the feelings of a top-tier bodyguard. No food until you finish the run. With that, Nathan Dawson turned and got into the modified jeep, leaving the training ground. Lord of Hell, drop dead. Emily Cherry yelled, her stubbornness propelling her forward. Ugh. After running about 5 kilometers, she couldn't see the troop anymore. The roadside scenery became increasingly desolate, as if running a little further would lead her to African refugees. Driven by her refusal to be looked down upon by Lord of Hell, Emily Cherry pushed herself relentlessly forward until the churning nausea in her stomach forced her to stop, kneeling by the bumpy roadside and vomiting. Dawson, Nathan Dawson, you hell-spawned Lord of Hell, I will absolutely not let you look down on me, cough. Emily Cherry's small face was as pale as a sheet. The heavy iron bar was thrown to the side. Her deceased father's stern, austere face flashed through her mind, along with his constant refrain, Emily, if you train hard in martial arts and get into the best martial arts university in China, I'll be so proud of you. Proud of what? Emily Cherry shook her head vigorously, hoping to dispel the image of her father. Taking a deep breath, she prepared to stand up and continue running. In the next moment, before Emily Cherry could react, the heavy iron bar beside her was lifted. Looking up, she saw a man she would recognize even if he were burnt to ashes. Furious, she yelled, Ethan Williams, why aren't you dead yet? He wore a grayish-brown camouflage uniform, his face painted with streaks of yellow and green grease paint. On his shoulder was a fierce tiger emblem, distinct from the training insignia of Nathan Dawson's N.K. company. It seemed, not to be from any domestic security force. Was he the enemy? He had taken her heavy iron bar. Time was running out. She was doomed. Oh, darling, you still remember me? Good girl. Ethan Williams, fully armed and representing Sector E at the joint training conference hosted by NK today, was surprised to witness his ex-girlfriend's impressive display of martial prowess, having abandoned medicine. He knew from their past that she was quite skilled, but after a long period of inactivity, her abilities had atrophied. Catching up to the training regimen of NK, China's most formidable security company, would be impossible. So, he tailed her, driving until she vomited and collapsed. Only then did he appear. Surprisingly, she still remembered him, her ex-boyfriend, which thrilled him. Under her suspicious and wary gaze, he swiftly snatched a heavy iron rod, aimed it at the camera hidden amongst the branches, and hurled it. Thud. A dull sound echoed as it accurately knocked the camera down. Quick, powerful, precise. Give me back the iron rod. Emily Cherry glanced at his posturing, stuck out her tongue, and mimed vomiting. Ethan Williams dramatically exhaled, picked up the heavy iron rod with the attached camera, and tossed it back to her. Watching her stagger back to catch it, he laughed, his eyes and brows filled with affection. He stepped closer to Emily Cherry, embraced her body, a mix of sweat and fragrance, and whispered, Babe, I miss you. Miss her? The renowned Ethan Williams missed her, this washed-up ex-girlfriend? If he missed her, would he have left 3 years ago without a word? If he missed her, would he have broken up with her? If he missed her, would he have disappeared for so many years? Damn man, even more hateful than Nathan Dawson. If it weren't for Ethan Williams, she wouldn't have become so shrewd. If it weren't for Ethan Williams, she wouldn't hate men so much, ugh, if it weren't for him. Emily Cherry, realizing her struggles were futile, resorted to punching and kicking him, hoping he'd release her. Bullshit, only a fool would believe your lies. Let go. A man's word is as reliable as a pig climbing a tree. Get lost. I don't want to see you again. Babe, you're so heartless. You don't even care about Tion, whom you used to adore. It hurts. Ethan Williams stared into Emily Cherry's unforgiving eyes, frowned, reluctant to let her go. Seeing her quickly retreat a few steps, he pursed his lips and said unhappily, "It seems you haven't forgiven me for what happened 3 years ago." "But babe, let me explain, Shut up. I don't want to hear it. None of you men are any good." Ethan Williams wanted to explain. Impossible. Was she seeing things? The Ethan Williams she knew was always free, never tied down by anyone, including her, his nominal girlfriend, no, ex-girlfriend. This anger, so like that cold-hearted Nathan Dawson. Huh. Why think of that tyrant Nathan Dawson? She shouldn't. Noticing the shift in Emily Cherry's expression, Ethan Williams realized that 3 years was perhaps long enough to change a person, even the woman he loved deeply. Observing her with a cold, furious expression, Ethan Williams, who assumed she would wait for him for 3 years, felt uncertain for the first time, overwhelmed by failure, and took 2 steps closer. "Baby, have you fallen for another man? Nathan Dawson?" "That blockhead Nathan Dawson, who she loves, has nothing to do with him, Ethan Williams. Does she have to report to her ex? Ridiculous." Emily Cherry looked at him mockingly, backing away further for safety. Seething with rage, her hands gripped the heavy iron rod. If murder wasn't illegal, she'd kill him. With great difficulty, she spat out, "Who I love is none of your damn business. Doesn't he think she's suffered enough? Isn't she enough of a laughingstock already? Baby, whether you forgive me or not, love any other man, but not Nathan Dawson. A man like him isn't someone you can control. Getting close to him will only hurt you, baby, you." Ethan Williams dropped his flippant demeanor, sincerely advising Emily Cherry, hoping she'd understand his heart. Unfortunately, she cut him off mid-sentence. A person needs face like a tree needs bark. The more despicable a person is, the more invincible they become. Isn't he talking about himself? Every bit of abandoned determination and resilience over the past 3 years transformed into grief. Letting it control her body, her eyes quickly reddened. Emily Cherry refused to cry in front of him, yelling, "Get the hell out. Others can be lapdogs, you can be a lapdog, look at your ragged clothes, you traitor, you lapdog. Who I like, who I love is none of your damn business. Let me tell you, I will cherish Nathan Dawson, hold him in the palm of my hand, afraid he'll melt in my mouth, I'd die for him. As for you, you left 3 years ago without a word. I consider you dead." She would never tell him that when he left without a word, taking all her tuition money, her mother, the sole breadwinner, was brutally murdered by thugs. She almost got expelled for lack of tuition. For the past 3 years, she survived on her hatred for him, vowing to love money, love animals, but never men. "Baby. Don't call me baby, or I'll be sick." Today, everything was laid bare. She'd had her say. From now on, they would be strangers. Emily Cherry thought, looking at Ethan Williams as if he were a stranger. Just end it without hearing his explanation? No. If he could have broken up with her 3 years ago, why would he choose to leave without a word? Thinking she would wait for him seemed to be a delusion. Ethan Williams couldn't accept this outcome. He rushed to Emily Cherry, shaking her forcefully, hoping she'd snap out of it, urging her not to act impulsively. "Emily, Cherry. Ethan Williams sure has guts. He dares to touch Nathan Dawson's woman." With a furious expression, Nathan Dawson descended from the nearby hillside, standing before them, coldly watching the 2 embracing figures, and roared at Emily Cherry. "Nathan Dawson, let me tell you, this guy was trying to get fresh with one of my female subordinates. Luckily, I arrived just in time. My darling is still the best." Emily Cherry, understanding Nathan Dawson's pre-storm posture, glanced indifferently at Ethan Williams, quickly pushing his large frame away. Her small face brimming with affection, she ran to Nathan Dawson, clinging to his arm coquettishly, her voice sweet enough to cause a sugar rush. "Someone, invite Captain Williams from E Division to the N.K meeting room. Also, call the company accountant to discuss the compensation details for the downed long-range infrared camera." Nathan Dawson wrapped his arms around the trembling Emily Cherry, not even sparing Ethan Williams a glance. He ordered his adjutant, who had just arrived, to handle the situation, then carried Emily Cherry away from the chaotic scene. Completely ignored, Ethan Williams watched their retreating figures, his eyes darkening ominously. Silence filled the car. Even without turning, Emily Cherry could feel two sharp gazes fixed on her. Oh, was he trying to kill her with his stare? It seemed the icy Lord of Hell, King of Hell, was thoroughly enraged. Damn woman, is she still playing dumb? Don't think she can fool me by pretending to be mute. Nathan Dawson glared at the silent Emily Cherry, fury burning within him. He gripped her small, pale face, forcing her to meet his gaze, her eyes reflecting only his image. "Listen here, I'm warning you, you better forget about him. Otherwise, I'll shoot you." Shoot her? Who's he trying to scare? She didn't know who had used a long-range infrared camera to monitor her, who had been secretly following her, or who had knocked over the jealousy jar. He couldn't possibly be talking about himself, could he? Emily Cherry stared directly at the handsome, wheat-colored face shrouded in a dark mist, inwardly cursing him as a paper tiger. She couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Laugh again, and you're grounded when we get home." Was she so thrilled to see her ex that she dared to laugh at him? Nathan Dawson couldn't see anything funny in what he'd said and could only conclude that she was out of her mind. Wouldn't being grounded mean a temporary escape from his clutches? No more being tormented to unconsciousness at night? Maybe she could finally reflect on how she'd survived the past 3 years. Emily Cherry raised her hand, removing his large hand from her chin. Tears of laughter streamed down her cheeks. She had always thought she was resilient and unyielding, but the truth was, she had been fooling herself. The memories of her father's death 6 years ago while saving someone, and her mother's tragic demise 3 years prior, all came flooding back today. Pain, real pain, consumed Emily Cherry. She couldn't distinguish between physical and emotional agony. "What are you crying about? Do you want a slap?" Nathan Dawson watched Emily Cherry laugh until she cried. The tears on her cheeks seemed to irritate him. He roared at her, hoping she would stop, but she only cried harder. Wait, what was she wiping on his black suit sleeve? Tears or snot? The clear liquid, damn, she was disgusting. He had never seen a woman cry so pathetically. Nathan Dawson, frowning, ripped off his impeccably tailored black suit, flung it at her, then slammed his foot on the gas pedal. He drove his modified SUV back to NK, stopping at the ground floor of a training facility for NK bodyguards. He hauled the still sobbing woman out and swiftly ascended to the top floor. For the first time, Emily Cherry felt a flicker of reassurance within the cold embrace of this Lord of Hell, Nathan Dawson. Emily Cherry, momentarily forgetting her sobs, watched the handsome, irritated man carry her upstairs. Her tear-filled eyes fixed on him, trying to decipher his thoughts. The swaying motion prompted her to cling to his neck as they ascended in silence. "You there, go wash your face. If I see another tear, I'll skin you alive." Nathan Dawson carried Emily Cherry from the ground floor to the top without a single pant. He tossed her onto a Spartan cot with a thump, ignoring her wince of pain. He strode to a simple wardrobe, grabbed a black suit, thrust it at her, and gestured for her to clean herself up. Wash my face, wash my face. What's with the aggro?" Emily Cherry, her eyes swollen like peaches, pouted and glanced down at the mud-caked camouflage fatigues she wore. Right, she'd knelt on the ground while vomiting, getting them filthy. Ethan Williams had seen her pathetic state, but had that Lord of Hell, Nathan Dawson, seen it too? Coughing lightly to mask her embarrassment, she grabbed his black suit and hurried to the bathroom. Expecting the opulent luxury of the Ingram mansion's bathrooms, she found only a rusty showerhead on the wall and a mirror. Nothing else. Not even a bar of soap. She'd planned a quick rinse under the ancient showerhead, but a blast of icy water soaked her clothes. Great, she hadn't wanted a cold shower in the first place, and now. After a moment's hesitation, to avoid catching a chill, Emily Cherry quickly shed her camouflage fatigues. She stood under the rusty showerhead, gritting her teeth as the icy water cascaded over her. Freezing. So freezing. Adaptability is strong. Nathan Dawson stood at the bathroom door, arms crossed, his cold eyes observing Emily Cherry under the icy spray. A flicker of admiration, almost imperceptible, crossed his gaze. Not bad. Adapting to the harsh military life on the first day. Ah, you pervert. Get out. Peeping Tom. Shameless. Furious that Nathan Dawson had seen everything, Emily Cherry wiped the cold water from her eyes. Her anger surged. Pervert, she spat. Is there any part of you I haven't seen? Are you yelling because I haven't touched you today? Nathan Dawson's handsome, wheat-colored face remained impassive, unmoved by her outburst. He stepped closer, his large hand brushing the spot where Ethan Williams had held her earlier. A glint of cold fire flashed in his eyes, his voice dropping to an even icier tone, or is it that where he touched, I'm not allowed to? Nathan Dawson's calloused hand scraped against her skin, the pain so sharp that Emily Cherry gasped, her temperature plummeting. Terror urged her to recoil, to flee, but she found herself trapped in his embrace, inhaling his uniquely cold, feral, masculine scent. In his breath, she smelled the cold, wild, masculine scent that belonged only to him. My body, none of you have the right to touch. Even you, those three. Words Emily Cherry didn't dare utter, but her expression surely conveyed the sentiment. She was certain of it. He doesn't have the right. Then he'd show her, through his actions, whether he had the right or not. Nathan Dawson glanced at Emily Cherry, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Scooping her up, he grabbed his black suit jacket from the doorknob, swiftly enveloping her fragrant body. He strode from the bathroom and tossed her roughly onto the wooden bed. Say that again if you dare. Say what? Wasn't it just her body, under her control? Did that really anger him? Emily Cherry desperately wanted to repeat herself, loudly, but under his overbearing, savage pressure, she didn't dare open her mouth. Her body stiffened like plaster, afraid to move a muscle. Her small face flushed crimson, while internally, she was vehemently cursing his entire family. Remember this, your body, only I can touch it. Nathan Dawson looked down at the small woman beneath him, issuing his latest decree. He kissed the blood welling from her bitten lip, a punitive kiss that turned her world upside down. This girl, I kiss you, and you dare to faint. You. Peach, Nathan Dawson deepened the kiss, preparing to make it clear that he, Nathan Dawson, was the man who controlled her body. The next moment, he found the woman had ceased resisting, collapsing like a corpse. Furious, Nathan Dawson forcibly suppressed his surging desire, rolling off her and onto the bed. His eyes blazed with murderous intent, the corner of his mouth twitching with rage. After a long moment, he ground out a furious growl. If not now, when? He wasn't wrong. Nathan Dawson had guessed correctly, Emily Cherry was feigning unconsciousness. To escape Nathan Dawson's excessive demands, and because her body hadn't fully healed, she had resorted to playing dead. Humph. Even a machine needs a break. Sensing his current fury and frustration, Emily Cherry almost burst out laughing. Humph, serves him right, that arrogant bastard Nathan Dawson. Daring to torment her, he was lucky she hadn't castrated him. Lucky bastard. Humph, tired and hungry. Sleep first, bye. Hey, you damned girl, wake up. Nathan Dawson glared at the motionless Emily Cherry. His large hand slapped her cheeks twice, but she didn't stir. Otherwise, the consequences could be dire. Jason Parker, struggling to contain his laughter, watched Nathan Dawson's bewildered expression. Knowing he was about to lose it, he couldn't believe his stoic friend had been played. While Nathan was distracted, Jason Parker gave Emily Cherry's nose a playful tweak, signaling her to play along. Painful. Professor Parker wants my cooperation, which is fine, but why the violent nose pinch? Hearing her injury status described so aptly, Emily Cherry almost jumped up to bow down to Jason Parker. Spot on. It was like reliving her past life, with that cold-hearted Lord of Hell Nathan Dawson tormenting her just like that. Now, with Professor Parker's help, she'd fully cooperate with the treatment, by feigning fainting and sleep. The thin, green blanket couldn't conceal Emily Cherry's soft, white skin. Nathan Dawson, his face burning with anger and his brows furrowed, clearly saw through Jason Parker's examination charade. He was filled with regret, silently cursing himself for being messed with by this damned girl. He hadn't expected the severe consequence of summoning this plague god. If his close buddies found out about this, it would cause chaos in the city, maybe even make the entertainment headlines. Damn it. Annoyed, he shoved Jason Parker, telling him to get lost after the examination and not stand there irritating him further. Hey, Emily Cherry is seriously injured. Should we transfer her to Parker Hospital for intensive care? Ha, ha. He almost died laughing. Who had ever seen Nathan Dawson this flustered? Joy is best shared. Akai and the others had surely never seen this. Maybe he should bring Emily Cherry to his turf and let his buddies enjoy the spectacle. It might even become a Stonemore City legend. Fine, I'll even cover your medical expenses. Seeing his smug, gossipy expression, Nathan Dawson kicked him, sending him stumbling forward and almost smashing his forehead, potentially ruining his handsome face. Before Jason Parker could react, Nathan Dawson, without even glancing up, pulled out his phone, dialed his butler, and then, with a jerk of his chin, coldly looked at him. 167, South Blossom Street, Serenity Veterinary Hospital. You, as the attending physician, will assist there for a week. I'll inform Parker Hospital. Don't worry, do a good job, or else I'll kick you to the obstetrics department. Nathan Dawson deliberately omitted two words, Serenity Veterinary Hospital. Since someone enjoyed seeing him embarrassed, he'd assign him to work with animals. Let's see if he'd dare gossip behind anyone's back again. Where's that? Are there lots of pretty nurses and patients? Serenity Veterinary Hospital. Did Stonemore City have such a renowned medical facility? Jason Parker ran his fingers through his short hair, seriously trying to recall any major hospitals he knew with the name Serenity. Your choice. Serenity has all sorts of female animals to flirt with, and the obstetrics department has middle-aged patients who could eat him alive. He can decide for himself. Glancing at the bruises on her neck and arms, Nathan Dawson authoritatively ordered his men to bring a stretcher and take Emily Cherry back to the Ingram mansion, following Jason Parker's instructions, pamper her with good food, drinks, and a week's rest. A dark and windy night, a night for murder. Emily Cherry, sound asleep, was tormented by a nightmare. In her dream, she returned to 3 years after her father, a Special Forces soldier, had died. That year, she had been ready to become his bride, but Ethan Williams abandoned her without a word, leaving her heartbroken. That year, her mother, her sole caregiver, was brutally murdered by an intruder, suffering 6 fatal stab wounds. That same year, the school's indifference, the classmates' rumors, coupled with the hardships of juggling multiple part-time jobs and demanding studies. What's with all the blubbering? Damn woman, bawling your eyes out again. Aren't you the tough one who can trek 50 kilometers without flinching? Nathan Dawson, intrigued by the dream that caused her torrential tears, 3 dark veins throbbing on his temple, roared, shaking Emily Cherry awake. Where am I? Emily Cherry, tears blurring her vision, jolted awake by Nathan Dawson's rough shake, sat up and took in the darkened master bedroom. Besides the Ingram mansion, where else could it be? Quickly regaining her composure, she wiped her tears with the back of her hand, stubbornly refusing to speak. "Housekeeper, bring in the clothes Nathaniel sent over." Nathan Dawson, his anger still simmering, barked the order, forcing his gaze away from her fragrant, naked body, fearing that the slightest lapse would ignite an explosion, leading him to pin her beneath him all night. "Yes, young master." The housekeeper, after ending the call on the Ingram mansion's intercom, promptly retrieved several large bags of clothing and accessories sent by N.G. Fashion House. Ascending to the second floor, they placed the bags at the door and knocked twice respectfully, knock, knock, before quietly returning downstairs without a word. "Dress yourself. If you beg, I might help you." Nathan Dawson, his face impassive, tossed one of the bags, personally styled by Nathaniel Cooper, onto Emily Cherry's blanket-covered legs, ordering her to dress. "Ah!" Emily Cherry gasped, realizing her bare torso was exposed, quickly pulling the blanket over herself and glaring at the amused Nathan Dawson. After a long silence, sensing his imminent eruption, Emily Cherry cautiously peeked into the bag. Her eyes widened at the price tag on the latest NG fashion, $29,998. Such a price for a simple shirt. Was he trying to bankrupt her? Are these clothes a gift? Or am I paying for them? If they were a gift, she should put them on. Making her pay would be like forcing her to perform the Emperor's new clothes. Her question, laced with an air of, "Take my life, not my money," hung in the air. Women, such strange creatures. Shouldn't she be worried about where she's being taken, not who's footing the bill? Nathan Dawson's icy gaze fixed on her small face. "Put it on my tab. We'll settle up in a week," he stated, his voice domineering. Not allowing her to hide, he pulled the blanket away, gently nipping her money-grubbing lips, signaling her to dress in front of him. Mr. Dawson, you don't have to leave, but could you at least show some respect for the fairer sex and turn around?" Under his intense stare, Emily Cherry swallowed hard, making her request. 1, 2. Before he reached 3, Nathan Dawson watched her swiftly dress and hop off the bed. Within a minute, she stood before him, elegant and unparalleled. Not bad. Next time she dawdled, there would be consequences. Nathan Dawson took her left hand, led her to the garage, selected a limited edition Lamborghini Reventon, tucked Emily Cherry into the passenger seat, settled himself behind the wheel, and with a roar of the engine, the car shot out of the Dawson family villa, guarded 24/7 by the military. Speeding towards the bustling city center. 45 minutes later, after driving at full throttle, the limited edition Lamborghini Reventon pulled into the private parking lot on the second basement level of the 6-star Thien Kai Hong Kong Hotel. Once again taking Emily Cherry's hand, his lips moved several times, yet no sound emerged. He stepped into his close friend Kyle Thomas's private elevator, remaining silent all the way up to the Western restaurant on the hotel's 65th floor. They sat down, and he habitually summoned the waiter and ordered. "Mr. Dawson, are you planning to treat me to dinner?" Emily Cherry watched the waiter pour her red wine, astonished, and asked Nathan Dawson. She hadn't expected him to be so fierce, yet so efficient. She was so hungry she could eat a whole cow. What a paper tiger. Yes. Nathan Dawson uttered a single word, as if answering Emily Cherry's question. He gestured for the restaurant manager to withdraw, then raised his glass and savored the 92 Lafite, noble, aloof, and imposing. "Nathan." A sweet, coquettish voice called from behind them. Emily Cherry coughed softly, masking her embarrassment at being captivated by Nathan Dawson's handsome appearance. She leaned to see who had arrived, and her small face instantly paled. Her hands clenched into fists as she glared at them. Leading the way was a tall, beautiful mixed-race girl, waving at Nathan Dawson. A harmless smile bloomed on her delicate oval face. Her long, wavy, reddish-blonde hair was incredibly alluring. At least 5 feet 7 inches, she looked like a top model, enveloped in a skin-tight, ultra-cool outfit. The man beside her was none other than her ex-boyfriend, Ethan Williams, whom she had just encountered earlier that day. He was incredibly handsome, a perfect match for the beautiful mixed-race woman. A truly striking couple. Judging by their intimate, hand-in-hand posture, their relationship was certainly not trivial. Boyfriend-girlfriend? Engaged? Married? Emily Cherry watched the man who had just spoken of missing her now hand-in-hand with another woman. Fearlessly provoking Nathan Dawson, her gaze fixed on Ethan Williams, she said, "Mr. Dawson, I want you to personally cut my steak." Ah. Since he was already taken, why should she bother too much? It was just a naive first love, after all. She, Emily Cherry, could endure it. Nathan, who is she? Why does she want you to feed her? Before Nathan Dawson could speak, the beautiful mixed-race girl with the reddish-blonde curls spoke first. She hadn't expected the cold and decisive Nathan Dawson to be dining with a woman, and even more unexpectedly, to be feeding her, disregarding his status. Darling. His business, and she dared to question him. Nathan Dawson saw the damned brat using him to irritate her ex. His entire being radiated a potent killing intent. His eyes, like sharp blades, pierced the beautiful mixed-race girl. He growled her name, warning her not to overstep her bounds. Nathan, this appears to be an incomplete sentence/interjection. Context suggests it's a shortened form of a name, likely Nathan Dawson's. Maintaining the original, as instructed. Nathan. Lisa Brooks, scolded by Nathan Dawson, stifled her bright smile and softly addressed him before falling silent. She returned to Ethan Williams's side, taking his arm, her eyes fixed on Emily Cherry, who was coquettishly interrupting their pleasant interaction. "Darling, don't be rude." Ethan Williams found Emily Cherry's gaze, initially hostile and now indifferent, increasingly unnerving. His tall frame stiffened, ignoring Lisa Brooks clinging to his arm. Like Nathan Dawson, a stern rebuke escaped his throat. A wave of helpless confusion washed over him. Watching Emily Cherry flirt with another man, he yearned to snatch her back, to kill that man. Nathan Dawson. But doing so would jeopardize the grand plan. Could 3 years of hardship truly compensate for the pain of losing her? "Vice President Williams, please have a seat." Despite saying, "please," Nathan Dawson's tone lacked any warmth. With the arrogance of a king on his throne, he dismissed Ethan Williams and Lisa Brooks, the daughter of the leading security company in the eastern region. His hands deftly sliced the steak, spearing a small piece and gently offering it to Emily Cherry. CEO Dawson, open wide, goosebumps erupted across Emily Cherry's skin. Mirroring Nathan Dawson, she speared a piece of prime steak and brought it to his lips, tenderly serving him. The intimacy between them was undeniable, making the other two at the table squirm in their seats. "Come here, sit next to me." Nathan Dawson, looking up at Emily Cherry across the table, ordered Ethan Williams to switch places with her. "Yes, sir." Ignoring Ethan Williams's reluctance, Emily Cherry, carrying the plate of steak already cut into 8 large pieces, trotted over to Nathan Dawson's side, waiting to sit. As Emily Cherry sat, Nathan Dawson longed to pull her soft body close. His gaze flicked to Ethan Williams's handsome face, registering the dark possessiveness there. A cold smirk touched his lips as he personally fed Emily Cherry. "This is too much, isn't it?" Held in Nathan Dawson's embrace, inhaling the clean scent of soap from his skin and hearing his steady heartbeat, Emily Cherry's small face flushed. Feeling the charade had gone too far, she tried to pull away, but her attempts were unsuccessful. She resigned herself to eating, her head bowed. Nathan Dawson's unusual behavior filled Lisa Brooks, who had loved him for years, with both envy and hatred. Her small face flushed with anger. She coughed delicately, breaking the sweet tableau, and spoke with a cold sniff, "Ethan Williams, I'm hungry too. Feed me." "Humph, as if they're the only ones allowed to sweetly feed each other. How dare this nobody monopolize Nathan Dawson and charm her fiancé, Ethan Williams." Lisa Brooks snuggled closer to Ethan Williams. "Oh, is someone actually challenging her?" Observing the jealous Lisa Brooks and the compliant Ethan Williams, Emily Cherry rolled her eyes in exasperation. She shyly patted Nathan Dawson's iron arm around her, signaling him to release her. No longer wanting to witness the scene, she pushed back her chair, stood, and followed the signs to the lavishly decorated restroom. Leaning against the cool tile, she closed her eyes for a moment's respite. "You're Emily Cherry. The orphan with no family, no background. You climbed into Nathan's bed based on a bit of beauty, and now you dare to flirt with Ethan Williams in front of me? You shameless vixen, do you know who my father is? He's the chairman of the #1 security company in the East, the one who facilitated this joint exercise with NK. If you don't want to jeopardize the entire cooperation plan, stay away from them." Lisa Brooks didn't beat around the bush, directly warning Emily Cherry to stay away from the two exceptional men, Nathan Dawson and Ethan Williams. She didn't want the man she had her eye on tainted by a lowly orphan. Asserting her family's status and background, she threatened Emily Cherry to leave. And so? Emily Cherry genuinely appreciated Lisa Brooks's bluntness, but so what? Stay away from them? She wanted to, but unless Nathan Dawson lifted the ban, what good were her words? Tilting her small, fair face upwards, she mimicked Nathan Dawson's indifferent tone as she retorted. "If I tell my father, he'll terminate this once-in-a-millennium joint training opportunity. Then you'll become N.K's biggest enemy and ultimately be assassinated." Lisa Brooks, seeing Emily Cherry's fearless expression, attempted to break her with her words. "What's it to me? I'm just a nobody. What does life or death have to do with me? How old are you? Still running around with 'daddy' on your lips? If you've got the guts, tell your daddy to end the joint training. I want to see whether Nathan Dawson and Ethan Williams will hate me or you. As for the assassination you mentioned, I'm always ready." Did she think this was the U.S., where murder was legal? Emily Cherry laughed at Lisa Brooks's simple thinking, shaking her head as she prepared to leave the restroom and return to the battlefield of the restaurant. Lisa Brooks arrogantly blocked Emily Cherry's path, preventing her from leaving and cursing, "Want to leave? Don't say I didn't warn you. Nathan will never like you, and Mr. and Mrs. Dawson will never accept you. He's just using you to provoke Ethan Williams." Having never endured such humiliation, the refined Miss Lisa Brooks wanted nothing more than to tear apart Emily Cherry's small, resilient, and delicate face. Disregarding her own status, she pointed at Emily Cherry's nose and cursed incessantly. Never having suffered such humiliation, the privileged Lisa Brooks wanted nothing more than to tear apart Emily Cherry's small, resilient, and delicate face. Disregarding her own status, she pointed directly at Emily Cherry and cursed incessantly. "Finished cursing? Can I go now?" Emily Cherry frowned, pushing away the slender arm blocking her chest. No longer wanting to waste words on Lisa Brooks, she fought to suppress her simmering anger, her fists clenched tight. She stepped out of the opulent restroom with its strange atmosphere and returned to the restaurant. Seeing Nathan Dawson and Ethan Williams locked in a tense, primal struggle, she hesitated, observed for a moment, and then returned to her seat, avoiding getting caught in the crossfire. Nathan Dawson, just because Emily Cherry knows a little martial arts doesn't mean she can withstand NK's Marine-level physical training. Give her a break. My woman. Deputy CEO Williams needn't worry about her. Nathan Dawson narrowed his eyes at Ethan Williams, who dared to lecture him, and spoke coldly. What about Evelyn Grace, who died because of you? Ethan Williams, wanting Nathan Dawson to let Emily Cherry go, uttered the name buried deep within his heart. I owe Evelyn Grace and will repay her with my life. So, how do you plan to repay Evelyn Grace for what you owed her 3 years ago? 3 years ago, during that brutal assassination attempt, Evelyn Grace had traded her life for theirs. Nathan Dawson had never forgotten his fiancée's face. No matter how the world changed, she would always hold a place in his heart. He didn't want her to endure loneliness alone. When the time came, he could end his life and join her in the afterlife, never to be parted again. Nathan. Note, retaining the name as spoken, assuming it's a nickname/term of address. Emily Cherry, sensing imminent danger, hurried back to her seat, perched obediently on his lap, lowered her head, and kissed his cold lips, murmuring in a voice only the three of them could hear, "Nathan, I'm full. I want to go home and do big things with you. This time, I promise I won't faint, okay?" This act was meant to prevent an unintentional bloodbath between the two alpha males. "Darling, you're..." Ethan Williams stared at Emily Cherry in disbelief, his heart aching with a pain comparable only to the agony he felt 3 years ago when Evelyn Grace sacrificed herself for him. If this was her revenge for his leaving without a word back then, she had succeeded. Emily Cherry had saved Ethan Williams's life. Nathan Dawson, fully aware of the situation, felt the storm of murderous intent rising within him, suppressed by her fragrant body pressed against his. He looked down at the woman kissing his throat, his hands gripping her waist in a punishing embrace, tightening his hold until she trembled with pain, yet he didn't relent. Who told her to use him, provoke him like this, and save her old flame? Nathan, you. How could someone as intelligent as Nathan Dawson not see through her little game? Emily Cherry, gritting her teeth, chose to ignore his anger and commit to the performance. Glancing at the stunned Law Wai-sa in the distance, she accepted her challenge by wrapping her arms around his neck, allowing him to kiss her with provocative fervor. "Let's go home." "She's got guts, challenging me in front of everyone," Nathan Dawson commanded in a husky, authoritative voice. Emily Cherry, "Darling," Ethan Williams roared internally countless times, hoping it was all a dream. His deep eyes, filled with rage and resentment, fixed on their retreating figures, his entire being radiating a destructive aura. "Kill her, we must kill her." Law Wai-sa muttered venomously, clinging to the rigid form of Ethan Williams, receiving no response. Before they even left the restaurant, Nathan Dawson pulled Emily Cherry into his arms. The seductive facade she had maintained throughout her performance instantly crumbled, leaving her stiff and frozen. But Nathan Dawson's hard, heated presence didn't freeze. His breathing was heavy and low, his eyes occasionally glancing at Emily Cherry in his embrace. "What's wrong? Done acting? Lost interest so quickly? Our big thing hasn't even started yet." Nathan Dawson, clearly aware of her thoughts, spoke in a low voice, a mixture of amusement and anger indistinguishable. Emily Cherry's lips parted slightly, her mind in turmoil. If it weren't for Lisa Brooks, she would never have done something so absurd. "Get in the car," Nathan Dawson said, practically throwing Emily Cherry into the passenger seat. "Damn it, who was the bastard who promised Jason Parker I'd take care of myself?" Emily Cherry cursed inwardly, her face still maintaining a seductive mask. Before starting the car, Nathan Dawson said in a low, wickedly arrogant voice, "From today onwards, you are not allowed to see Ethan Williams again. If I catch you sneaking around with him." As he spoke, Nathan Dawson unexpectedly drew a gleaming dagger from his belt, inlaid with 6 different colored gemstones, exquisite yet extravagant, and pressed the blade against Emily Cherry's chin. Emily Cherry broke out in a cold sweat. What was the point of this knife-to-the-throat charade? If he didn't want her to see him, then fine. It's not like she was dying to see that low-down bastard anyway. "Dawson, CEO Dawson, I absolutely will not secretly meet him, you can rest assured about that. Right now, I just want to kill him." Emily Cherry's luscious red lips trembled, her teeth chattering. Nathan Dawson twirled the dagger a few times before quickly sheathing it back in his belt. Emily Cherry sighed, "Truly, nothing could escape Nathan Dawson's notice. Nathan Dawson drove back to the Dawson family villa. On the way, the thick night outside the car window made the moonlight even brighter. Emily Cherry leaned her head against the passenger seat. Her only private space now was the small area on the passenger seat where she turned her back to Nathan Dawson. The car moved at a steady, neither fast nor slow, pace on the highway. Emily Cherry had thought Nathan Dawson would be in the mood to take her in the back seat tonight, but unexpectedly, he managed to control his lower body's reaction, maintaining his composure and driving steadily. This struck Emily Cherry as odd. Damn it, I must be screwed up from all the screwing. I feel uncomfortable when I'm not being screwed. Emily Cherry occasionally glanced back at Nathan Dawson, only to shrink back, intimidated by his cold expression. However, in the brief glimpse she caught of his face, she detected a hint of sadness. Get out of the car, stop pretending to sleep. Nathan Dawson's low, gruff voice shattered Emily Cherry's dream. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and slowly got out of the car. Unable to bear her sluggishness, Nathan Dawson hoisted her over his shoulder and slowly carried her up to the second-floor bedroom. Before Emily Cherry could undress, Nathan Dawson had Lily Kirkland bring an incredibly tacky silk dress. This semi-transparent black silk dress was practically see-through from top to bottom, head to toe. Emily Cherry gaped at the revealing garment. Even Lily Kirkland, who brought the dress, blushed, and after handing it over, she quickly scurried away. Did Nathan Dawson read The Emperor's New Clothes too many times as a child? Why was everything he liked so revealing? Not to mention the embarrassing sex in the car in front of his subordinates, or the way he mounted her like a male dog, now he wanted her to wear provocative lingerie. What was the deal? At this moment, Emily Cherry screamed internally, Lisa Brooks, you damned woman. If I had known Nathan Dawson was this crazy, I wouldn't have bothered seducing him earlier. Now I'm really crying without tears. What are you still standing there for? Put it on. Nathan Dawson finally roared, unable to stand Emily Cherry holding the silk dress with a dumbfounded expression for so long. Emily Cherry hurriedly took off her clothes and was about to put on the dress when Nathan Dawson abruptly stood up and walked towards her, irritated. Is it so difficult for you to put on clothes? Where's that flirtatious demeanor from earlier? As he spoke, he ripped off the buttons on Emily Cherry's clothes with his rough, calloused hands. But what surprised Emily Cherry was that, this time, Nathan Dawson didn't rush to force himself on her, but carefully helped her back into her black silk nightgown. Nathan Dawson, do you treat your other girlfriends like this too? A huge question mark popped up in Emily Cherry's mind. Spin around for me. What? Did I hear that right? Now he's treating me like a fashion model. I told you to spin around, are you deaf? Don't make me say it a second time. Nathan Dawson's tone carried an undeniable firmness. Emily Cherry obediently spun around. This guy was acting really strange tonight, his expression not exactly sad, but very unpleasant, a complex mix of emotions about to explode. Now I'm the one about to be sunk, right? Why is he so messed up? Alright, probably. Before she could finish her sentence, Emily Cherry was pushed onto the bed by Nathan Dawson. Emily Cherry had anticipated this situation. Still no foreplay, no sweet talk, no negotiation whatsoever. The 4 words, straight to the point, Emily Cherry never thought would apply to her situation with Nathan Dawson. Although Emily Cherry was used to Nathan Dawson's roughness, she was more intrigued by his odd behavior tonight than by this whole ordeal. What's wrong with you tonight? Emily Cherry asked, turning her head to stare at Nathan Dawson's face with suspicion. Shoo, don't talk. Nathan Dawson's voice suddenly became very gentle, which surprised Emily Cherry greatly, but what surprised her even more were the hot tears that plopped onto her back. Halfway through the main event, the phone in the room suddenly rang. Nathan Dawson reached out and picked up the phone irritably, putting it to his ear. I'm telling you. Nathan, you're going too far, aren't you? Taking me to this Serenity Veterinary Hospital, which turns out to be an actual veterinary hospital, you think I'm a veterinarian? I'm a general practitioner, and you bring me here to neuter cats and dogs. Wait. What's with your heavy breathing? Are you not? Oh my God, I'm so miserable, why do I always run into this every time you do it? But, Nathan Dawson, no, Emily Cherry hasn't recovered yet. And so on. What's going on with your heavy breathing? You're not here. It's Jason, my life is so miserable, why do I always catch you doing this? But, Nathan Dawson, no, Emily Cherry hasn't recovered yet. Emily Cherry didn't know who was calling. In the pitch-black room, she couldn't see any change in Nathan Dawson's expression. She only knew that while the person on the other end of the line kept rambling, Nathan Dawson hung up the phone irritably, then continued to lie on top of her, burying his head and working, as if the phone call had never happened. She didn't know what was stimulating this guy tonight, otherwise, Emily Cherry really couldn't think of any reason for him to shed tears. She wasn't being paranoid, the hot sensation that had just fallen on her back, besides tears, there was definitely nothing else. Just as she was about to open her mouth to ask, she felt that with Nathan Dawson's personality, he definitely wouldn't tell her the reason. So be it. Enduring the dull ache coming from her back, Emily Cherry cursed Nathan Dawson's ancestors for 8 generations. Although, in order to escape this cage as soon as possible and smoothly get the 10 million compensation, she still decided to be a sensible person, but this didn't mean she had to submit to Nathan Dawson psychologically. Emily Cherry braced herself for another night of torment, but to her surprise, after Nathan Dawson climaxed inside her, he left the room without a word. Watching the man's gloomy, solitary retreat, Emily Cherry wondered, wasn't this the arrogant, high and mighty Nathan Dawson? What was eating him tonight? But what did his problems have to do with her? She was just the caretaker/housekeeper he'd hired for 10 million. Once the transaction was complete, she was back to being Dr. Emily Cherry at Serenity Veterinary Hospital, with no connection to Nathan Dawson, the head of NK Security. Thinking of Serenity Veterinary Hospital, Emily Cherry felt a pang of longing for her furry patients. She wondered if Shadow and Buddy had been picked up by their owners, and if Annie's leg had healed. The next morning, Nathan Dawson found Emily Cherry sprawled on his bed, giggling in her sleep, a trail of drool staining his pillow. Utterly disgusted, Nathan Dawson yanked the pillow away and barked, "Woman, get up." Deprived of her pillow, Emily Cherry simply rolled over and continued snoring. Is this woman a pig? Nathan Dawson's patience with Emily Cherry was perpetually on the brink of collapse. His face hardened, and without hesitation, he smacked her backside, jolting the half-asleep woman awake and sending her tumbling off the bed. Damn it, are you crazy? Why did you hit me? This time, the sting of the slap on her backside snapped Emily Cherry awake. She sat up, glaring at the man looming over her. As a security officer, you should maintain a disciplined schedule. If you continue sleeping, I'll cancel a week of your leave. Your choice. Overnight, Nathan Dawson had reverted to his arrogant, domineering self. Dressed in his crisp uniform, he stood like a mountain before Emily Cherry, his face devoid of last night's vulnerability. His dark eyes, framed by thick brows, fixed her with an icy stare. Staying under his roof and intimidated by his authority, Emily Cherry swallowed her anger, glared at him, and reluctantly climbed out of bed. Seeing her standing before him in the sheer nightgown from the previous evening, completely unguarded, Nathan Dawson felt a surge of heat. A strange haze clouded his eyes as he looked at her. Do you act like this in front of other men? His words jolted Emily Cherry to awareness. Ah, you psycho. Get out. Where are my clothes? Emily Cherry scrambled for her clothes, finally locating them in a pile on the floor beside the bed. Without a second thought, she scooped them up and fled into the bathroom. Nathan Dawson, you arrogant jerk, just you wait until I get my hands on those 10 million. I'll be long gone, and you'll never see me again. Muttering curses under her breath, Emily Cherry quickly dressed and exited the bathroom, only to be surprised by Nathan Dawson's continued presence in the room. "Starting today, you'll be training in boxing for 4 hours daily. I'll be back in a week to check your progress." Emily Cherry, fresh out of the bathroom, was taken aback by Nathan Dawson's commanding declaration. "Boxing? 4 hours? Hey, you promised me a week off. Why do I have to box? What kind of break is this? Does this guy ever keep his word? Or did I miss something? Is he playing word games with me again? You'll train because I said so. Stop your whining. A bodyguard will escort you. Now, get downstairs and eat." Emily Cherry's protest was met, unsurprisingly, with a torrent of yelling from Nathan Dawson. Glaring at his moving mouth, she wished she could hurl her slipper at his face. "Why are you still standing there? Do you want me to kick you down the stairs?" Seeing Emily Cherry frozen in place, Nathan Dawson barked another command. The threat was clear. Emily Cherry had no doubt that if she didn't move, this aggressive rich boy would actually kick her out. The atmosphere at the dining table was incredibly strange. Emily Cherry treated the cold cuts like they were Nathan Dawson, hacking them to pieces with furious force, her knife work so intense that the nearby bodyguard thought she was butchering raw meat. Nathan Dawson, meanwhile, sat calmly in his chair, seemingly oblivious to Emily Cherry's venomous glare. Report. Just then, a tall, muscular, dark-skinned man entered the dining room. It was Connor Steele, Nathan Dawson's right-hand man. "Boss, you wanted to see me?" Upon Connor Steele's arrival, Nathan Dawson set down his cutlery. "Yes. This is our new employee, number 9527. You met her 2 days ago. From today onwards, you'll be her boxing coach. 1 week. I'll personally evaluate the results next week." "Understood, boss." After briefly introducing Emily Cherry to Connor Steele, Nathan Dawson rose to leave, Connor Steele standing respectfully to see his boss off. Emily Cherry gaped at Connor Steele's imposing figure, vaguely recalling seeing him at the Spectre's training ground, but unsure of his name or position. But that wasn't the point. "Hey, Nathan Dawson, you weasel. You promised me a week off. Now you're making me box. Well, let me tell you, I don't like boxing. I absolutely hate it." Emily Cherry yelled after Nathan Dawson's retreating figure, sounding like a fishwife. Nathan Dawson undoubtedly heard her outburst, and Connor Steele, standing in the dining room, heard every word even more clearly. There was no doubt Nathan Dawson heard her yell, and Connor Steele, standing in the living room, heard every word even more clearly. Watching his boss's rigid back disappear casually at the main door, Connor Steele's eyes twitched. Since he started working for Nathan Dawson, he'd never seen anyone dare to be so insolent in front of him. This woman before him, petite in appearance but strong in spirit, was the first case in history. Just as Connor Steele couldn't help but turn to assess Emily Cherry, she simultaneously looked towards him, but her gaze was quite profound. Lackeys, the whole damn lot of them. Seeing that her resistance didn't faze Nathan Dawson at all, Emily Cherry angrily turned her head to glare at Connor Steele, who was standing innocently in the living room, then abruptly sat down. As her dagger-sharp gaze swept past him, 3 black lines appeared on his forehead. Misdirected anger, this was clearly misdirected anger. But, what could he do? Could he, like with other stubborn employees, teach Emily Cherry a lesson? Even a fool could see that their boss treated this newcomer, Miss 9527, differently from others. When had he ever personally monitored the actions of ordinary employees? Before coming here, he had already gotten a scoop from Tom Drake. The boss had signaled that this woman would be their future sister-in-law. If he really taught her a lesson, would the boss retaliate against him? It was hard to say. Glancing at Emily Cherry, who was looking at him with hostile eyes, Connor Steele sighed inwardly. Just as the atmosphere reached its peak tension, one of Nathan Dawson's personal bodyguards appeared at the perfect moment. He carried a small-sized male security uniform and respectfully placed it in front of the frowning Emily Cherry. "Madam, this is what the boss asked me to prepare for you." "What the hell? Who's your madam?" Extremely irritated, Emily Cherry was ready to take on anyone, even an innocent little bodyguard. Madam? Had any madam ever suffered such indignity as she? She couldn't even control her own affairs. Emily Cherry was fuming, but the bodyguard remained impassive. Her attacks on these bodyguards were like punches landing on cotton. No matter how much force she exerted, they didn't react. Seeing that the bodyguard acted as if he hadn't heard her words, still standing respectfully before her with his chest puffed out, Emily Cherry deflated like a punctured balloon and plopped down onto the chair. Sigh, this had nothing to do with them anyway. Getting angry at them was pointless. Ahem. Seeing that her anger seemed to have subsided, Connor Steele, standing beside her, coughed twice. "Well, sister-in-law, the boss is doing this for your own good. Boxing is excellent for improving physical fitness. Don't be so stubborn." Bloody hell, she's stubborn. These people had no idea how that lunatic Nathan Dawson had treated her. He'd clearly promised Jason Parker to give her a week's rest, and now, not even 2 days had passed, and he had her boxing. She'd rather go back to the training team and do cross-country running. The thought of boxing made her nauseous. That bastard Ethan Williams used to love boxing. She couldn't count how many pairs of boxing gloves she'd given him, only for him to dump her in the end. Of all things, Nathan Dawson made her take up boxing. Both of them, absolute bastards. Seeing Emily Cherry staring blankly at the security uniform on the table, Connor Steele couldn't quite figure out what she was thinking. But to avoid making his sister-in-law uncomfortable, especially after hearing her express her dislike for boxing, Connor Steele forced a good-natured smile onto his tanned face. "Sister-in-law, if you really don't like boxing, just imagine the punching bag is someone you hate, and hit it with all your might. It's a great way to vent your anger and practice your skills, 2 birds with 1 stone." Emily Cherry, still feeling irritated, looked up at Connor Steele when she heard him say that and burst out laughing. "Pfft. This guy, he's got a point." Seeing Emily Cherry laugh, Connor Steele grinned, his own amusement mirroring hers. "All right then, let's go practice boxing right now, and beat those 2 lunatics to a pulp." "Yeah, all right." Having successfully coaxed his sister-in-law into happily going to practice boxing, Connor Steele finally breathed a sigh of relief. Too bad he still didn't know who the 2 lunatics Emily Cherry was referring to were. If he did, his face would have turned green. Changing clothes and walking with Connor Steele to the training ground, Emily Cherry discovered just how massive the Dan residence truly was. The sheer extravagance of the garden alone was enough to make even a god indignant. Add to that the 7 or 8 bulletproof cars, modified cars, and sports cars parked all over the courtyard, and Emily Cherry couldn't help but gape. No wonder she and Nathan Dawson had managed to return home safely that day despite being ambushed on the way. It seemed to be related to the impeccable security measures at his house. Just who did this guy offend to have people chasing him to the ends of the earth? Realizing this, Emily Cherry felt even more strongly that she needed to get away from Nathan Dawson as soon as possible. Otherwise, who knew, one day she might get mistakenly killed by his enemies, and then the 10 million she'd worked so hard to earn would be for nothing. "Oh right, what's your name?" The 2 had been silent the entire way, so Emily Cherry had to find something to talk about. "My name is Connor Steele, I'm the team leader of NK Security." "Sister-in-law, you can just call me Charles Strong," Connor Steele said, grinning goofily at Emily Cherry. Emily Cherry hadn't expected someone so down-to-earth to be by Nathan Dawson's side, and she immediately felt a sense of goodwill towards him. "So, Charles Strong, did you also learn boxing before?" "I was a boxing coach before I joined the army." "All right, consider yourself skilled." Emily Cherry spoke to him while secretly calculating in her mind. "So, with your skills, could you beat Nathan Dawson? Hearing Emily Cherry say this, Connor Steele froze, then a blush crept up his tanned face, and he gave an embarrassed laugh. Hey, is he embarrassed? This is getting interesting. I could win, but the boss is too cunning. Every time I'm not paying attention, he trips me, so I always end up losing against him. Darn it, I lose every single time, what's there to be ashamed of? Emily Cherry couldn't help but silently lament. After walking through the 20-meter-long corridor of the garden, Connor Steele finally brought Emily Cherry to the boxing ring. Looking at the punching bag in front of her, Emily Cherry's mouth immediately formed an O shape. Holy crap, is this supposed to be a punching bag? It's clearly a whole mountain. The enormous punching bag was hung in the middle of the ring by 3 thumb-thick iron chains. It would take at least 3 people to hug it completely. Seeing Emily Cherry's astonished expression, Connor Steele awkwardly scratched his head and chuckled. Normal punching bags can't withstand the beating, we have to replace them every 2 days, so Tom Drake and I asked the boss to get us a custom-made one, so we don't have to keep replacing them. Hearing Connor Steele's humble words, Emily Cherry's lips couldn't help but twitch. Damn, are all the people at N.K security monsters? It's a miracle I wasn't strangled to death by Nathan Dawson that night. So, shall we begin? Determined to smash this punching bag, Emily Cherry put on her boxing gloves and spoke to Connor Steele. Connor Steele didn't waste any time, he put on his gloves and demonstrated a move for her, then signaled for Emily Cherry to imitate him. Watching the large punching bag sway from Connor Steele's punch, Emily Cherry couldn't help but feel a little excited. If she could train to this level, she wouldn't be bullied by Nathan Dawson anymore, right? Thinking of this, Emily Cherry confidently mimicked Connor Steele's posture and threw a punch at the punching bag. The punching bag didn't budge, but Emily Cherry felt like her arm was no longer her own. A moment later, as the numbed pain receptors sprang back to life, Emily Cherry quickly retracted her hand and jumped back. Holy shit, that hurt like hell. Sis-in-law, are you alright? Seeing her suddenly jump back, Connor Steele was startled. If the boss's precious one got hurt, how could he ever make amends? Oh my god, this punching bag is so hard. Emily Cherry shook her nearly broken wrist and groaned. Let's switch to a smaller one for practice first. Connor Steele hurriedly said. It was his fault for not thinking things through. How could an ordinary woman withstand this custom-made punching bag? If that punch had landed with his force, Emily Cherry's arm would probably be broken. No, I want to use this one. Emily Cherry stubbornly retorted. Thinking that Connor Steele trained with punching bags like this every day and still couldn't beat Nathan Dawson, if she showed weakness now, wouldn't she be forever trampled under that man's feet? Just the thought of it made Emily Cherry feel indignant. Even a salted fish can turn over, she, Emily Cherry, absolutely could not admit defeat at this point. Seeing her unwavering determination, Connor Steele had no choice but to meticulously explain the key points to her. Emily Cherry then realized that hitting a punching bag, while seemingly simple, actually had its own secrets. Her previous reckless approach was completely wrong. The fist had to combine hardness and softness to exert the right amount of force. After listening to Connor Steele's instructions, Emily Cherry carefully memorized every word, then punched according to his method, and indeed, she found that her wrist was no longer injured by the sandbag's recoil. Connor Steele stood beside her, watching with an expression that suggested he wished he could punch through the sandbag himself, secretly astonished. This focused expression, it's exactly like her. Could it be that the boss brought her back because of this? So, how was that? After pummeling the sandbag like a storm for about half an hour, Emily Cherry finally stopped to rest. If she hadn't imagined the sandbag as that bastard Nathan Dawson, she really didn't know if she could have persisted for so long. Very good. Just remember to use vibrational force in the future, so that the power can penetrate the sandbag, truly enhancing your technique and striking power. Unaware of the inner turmoil, Connor Steele was quite satisfied with Emily Cherry's first sandbag performance. Seeing her hateful expression, he was sure she was picturing some scoundrel. Much later, Connor Steele would learn that the scoundrel in her mind was actually their boss, but that's a story for another time. Connor Steele spoke while looking at Emily Cherry with a dubious expression, feeling that the look on her face and the explosive power and momentum during her sandbag practice were exactly like that person 3 years ago. "What are you looking at?" Emily Cherry asked, wiping the sweat from her forehead as she looked at him. Could this guy also have a cleanliness obsession, not allowing her to wipe her sweat on her uniform? Recalling Nathan Dawson's disgusted expression when she wiped her tears on her uniform, Emily Cherry curled her lip in disdain. "Excuse me, but in the absence of tissues or a towel, using clothes to wipe tears or sweat is perfectly normal for regular people. What's your relationship with Evelyn Grace?" After a moment of hesitation, Connor Steele decided to ask the question. He was the type to wear his heart on his sleeve. Keeping things bottled up made him uncomfortable. "Evelyn Grace? I don't know her." Emily Cherry looked at Connor Steele strangely, but the name sounded familiar, like she'd heard it somewhere before. "You really don't know her? Oh my, I told you, you and her are so alike, practically the same mold." Connor Steele went on a tangent, pouring out everything he'd been keeping inside. "What do you mean, same mold?" The more Emily Cherry listened, the more confused she became, unsure what Connor Steele was talking about. "She's the boss's ex-girlfriend, same fiery personality as you, never backs down." Once Connor Steele started talking, he couldn't stop, his gossip level was on par with a group of aunties. But his casual words hit Emily Cherry like a bombshell. Her. Like Nathan Dawson's ex-girlfriend, Evelyn Grace. This. Oh really? Is everything you're saying true? Emily Cherry smiled brightly at Connor Steele, her face innocent and harmless, but inside, she was mentally beating the hell out of that bastard Nathan Dawson. "That, you don't know about Evelyn Grace?" Connor Steele, though a blabbermouth, wasn't stupid. After hearing Emily Cherry's question, he realized he'd made a huge mistake. Gulping, he looked at Emily Cherry and asked. I didn't know before, but don't I know now?" As soon as Connor Steele heard Emily Cherry speak, he froze, 3 black lines appearing on his forehead. "Boss, I messed up this time, don't blame me, okay? Why didn't you give us a heads up? Now look, I accidentally walked right into the line of fire." Emily Cherry, looking at his expression, found it quite amusing. "Hey, Charles Strong, tell me how we're alike." "Like, in what way?" "Our figures, maybe." Emily Cherry's smiling eyes, at this moment, were more terrifying to Connor Steele than the Grim Reaper himself. "Sister-in-law, I don't know anything about this." "How could you not know? You just said it. That I and that Evelyn girl are from the same mold. Evelyn Grace, right? Nathan Dawson's ex."